Please take attendance.
Councilwoman Noah
She's running late.
and Councilwoman Covington. Here. Councilman Cassoff,
Here.
Mayor Shropshire,
Here.
Councilman Franklin,
He's running late too.
Councilman Palmer,
Here.
Councilman Williams,
Running late.
A quorum is present. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. After our last budget work session, we heard that people online couldn't hear us, so we've kind of reorganized just to let people able to hear what's going on. So as people are speaking this evening, we'll come to the podium, kind of go through our lines and all that lovely stuff, and go from there. I sent you guys all an email. We'll start at the beginning. I sent you an email on Friday. There was a couple of you that said you did not receive it, but that packet is in front of you. As requested, department heads have went through their minor lines, and we were able to realize another $250,000 and $250,430 in savings. As I indicated in the email, you guys can look through this. If there's additional cuts you want to make, by all means, we can do that. Or we can pass this as indicated to you guys. That's totally up to you. I indicated in the email as well as some other budget cuts that may be needed. We talked about staffing, so I wanted to give you kind of a breakdown by department, what that looks like. Let's have to take one down fast. Style.
could have made it that way.
So the sheet that I just gave you is basically broken down by what staffing was budgeted in 26, what staff we proposed to budget in 27, and then what currently those levels are at by department. So if you go through, you can look at what those levels are by department. It goes city council and clerk, city manager, courts, public works admin, human resources, IT, finance, planning, code enforcement, police, fire, street maintenance, parks maintenance, and garage. These are all the funds that are captured within your general fund, which is the budget that we're looking at with scrutiny this year because of the funding imbalance. As mentioned, we need to cut realistically about $1 million. And so that's what we're looking at this evening. It's technically 1.1, but that's where we're at. If you look at the staffing numbers, that's where the biggest cost is to the city overall. About 80% of our general fund budget is staffing. So that's what we're looking at right now. We have all of our department heads here this evening, so I don't know how you would like to proceed. But I've already given you what we've kind of talked about and what we think the biggest areas are to look at, and we'll kind of go from there. So it's up to you how we want to proceed. I've got department heads here to talk to, or if you guys want to go through line by line and talk about what you want to cut. But we're here at your pleasure at this point.
Let's hear what the department said there. Department, are we?
Well, so if we go through the usual with the department heads, how long is that going to take?
You're gonna be looking at a couple hours, and realistically, with the sheet that I gave you, you might be able to nickel and dime $10,000, $15,000
I mean,
realistically.
this is what the department heads have already agreed to cut.
This is what department heads have agreed to cut. You can whittle this 250,000 off, having them come up. They're gonna explain their justifications on each of these lines and tell you why or why not they need their things. That's why I gave you this on Friday, so you compare it to your notes and see if there's things that you disagree with, or you think they could cut additional from this list, or even outside of this list. Going line by line, it's an exercise we've always done in the past, but like I've mentioned before, you're not gonna get much there. We could cut all those lines down to zero and you would have realized $400,000. That's not what we need.
And the bottom line is, with it being 80% salaries, unless we're cutting people, we're not gonna get there,
That's 100% correct.
bottom line.
Correct.
So I would suggest to the mayor that perhaps spending 2 hours listening to them go over what we've already got might not be a great use of anybody's time. We can pass this if no one has any objections. Or we can have everybody go through it line by line. It's whatever you guys want. I certainly wouldn't support spending 2 hours doing that.
Councilman Greenwood?
So, little bit of a curveball, I'll throw it out to the council. So I have concerns about the budget in general. This is my second budget round. And last budget season, we were presented with a budget that was allegedly balanced. And the budget, I believe before that was balanced. And now we find out in April that we overestimated our revenues for years. And now we're in a situation where we've got to get rid of critical staff or make drastic cuts. And I don't know who vetted this information, because whoever was vetting it over the years didn't do a good job. And so now for me as a councilman, how do I know this is accurate? You know, because it looks like the audits that we did for years didn't catch this. Our city manager didn't catch it, and our finance directors didn't catch this. And we're in the middle of a state investigation into our finances, which hasn't been completed. So I don't know if our attorney is here. I don't see either of them. But what I would recommend to the board is, instead of approving the budget tonight, I don't feel comfortable approving it until the investigation is complete, because I don't know if this is just mismanagement or if there's any fraud involved in this, because it's an investigation. And I would hope that it's not, but I can't say without 110% that that's not the case. But before I can approve a budget, especially a budget that cuts essential staff, I would like to know what the results of that investigation is. So I say, maybe as a council, we need to consider allocating funds to run the city month to month, if that's allowed legally. I know some jurisdictions can do it. I don't know about Ferguson. That's why I was hoping the attorney could advise us, but that's just my 2 cents to the council. And
I'd like to clarify a little bit, because some of what you say is true, some isn't. If you look at all the previous year's budget, yes, I did say that revenues were overstated, but every year, when you look in transfers and other things, we were dipping into the reserves consistently. That's the budget that was presented to council, that they were going to use reserves in the general fund, or that they were using dollars from transfers from other accounts to cover expenses in the general fund. This is the first year that we budgeted conservatively for the sales tax portion, because it has been overestimated. And I saw no point in continuing down that road to put us further in the hole and keep spending in those reserves, because those reserves will run out. And that's what we're looking at right now. And that's why we're budgeting the way we're budgeting. So we're taking a more conservative approach instead of budgeting liberally, hoping the sales tax will increase by 1% or 1.5%. And they could. People may go back to stores, start buying things. Internet sales could swing, and we could have, but that's what we're going to look at month to month, revenues versus expenditures, and have a more accurate account of those as we're moving through this. What I have proposed to you is a very conservative approach, so we're not dipping into the reserves out of the gate with our budget.
well, and I appreciate that. And I wish whenever we found out, whatever year that we overestimated, that we would have took that conservative approach back in 21, 22, 23, whenever we saw that we weren't hitting those target projections in revenue. But again, my concern is the budget that was submitted to council a week and a half ago. These numbers aren't all right. Like, the overall budget says we're in the black, but that, as you told me, that's based off of poor projections with our revenue. So I'm reviewing a document that shows us that the revenues, that the city's budget is in the black, but that's wrong.
And that's what I told
And that's a
council.
huge problem, in my opinion. Maybe it doesn't, my colleagues, I can only speak for me, but it's like, I gotta have accurate information to make an honest, professional decision. And so that just kind of gives me pause, especially when we're in the middle of an investigation, which I don't think you hear rumors, but I don't know where we are with that. So
We've not gotten a response from them, just to put it in the front. And that's what I told council at the beginning. Like, I wanted us all working through this exercise with the same budget. I could have went back in and made those changes and given you another version, but that wouldn't have done anybody justice, because then we're working on 2 different versions, 3 different versions, 4 different versions. So by giving you what you had at the beginning and us making changes as a group, everybody can navigate that together in this exercise. It would make no sense if you brought in the old one and it was the wrong numbers again, because then you're gonna be going back and forth. My page 67 says this. My page 554 says this. Like, that is just futile.
Well, I would say to what, my colleague, Councilman Cassoff stated, we may not need to hear from all departments tonight, but the departments that we're being, I guess, urged to cut, we definitely should hear from those departments. Cause again, like the way my mind works, budget cuts that start with the department heads, then it goes to city manager, and then it comes to us last. But it sounds like now we're being, we're gonna make the final decision on departmental cuts. And again, I'm not qualified to tell the fire department, the police department, public works, any other department in the city, which staff should go, which staff should stay.
I don't think that's what you're being asked at all. I think you're
Okay.
being asked to cut a dollar amount and then give that back to the department heads and for them to make the final decision as far as what their department can function with. I don't think it is your purview to say that person
Okay.
needs to go, this person needs to go, that person needs to go. What you're looking at is the overall budget of the city and what those numbers look like and where you can afford to cut anything.
And I thought that, I was of the impression that's what the Friday deadline was, that department heads would make their cuts by Friday, 12 noon. And then if they didn't make those cuts, you would make the recommendations from the cuts.
And
go from
we
there.
went through that exercise and we're where we are right now.
All right, appreciate you.
Councilwoman Covington?
Okay, can you clear up, Jamil keeps saying investigation. And I'm not sure people understand that when you get audited, it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. You can get audited this year, you can get audited 4 years later. Also, the IRS does not give you a deadline. So saying we are waiting for the IRS to give us time back, the state auditor. State auditor. We don't have a time, so saying we're waiting for that might not be a good idea. So I would like you to explain that so it doesn't go on record that we're being investigated. And also, can you, talk about our time frame on when we have to, have a budget in to vote on?
Yeah, definitely. So as you mentioned, the state auditor sent us investigative information. They wanted certain reports, everything else. We provided that information back in the fall. They've had it now, I want to say since October or November, and they have not replied to it. They haven't asked for any additional information, haven't said we're furthering the investigation. We provided everything front to back, cover to cover that they asked for. They have all the records. We haven't heard anything. So as you alluded to, they could take another 6 months, year, 2 years. We don't know. They could come back and say, you don't need to do anything else, but we don't have that information and we don't know when we will. As far as the budget timeline, it is an ordinance that is passed. So it has to be read 2 times. It has to be passed no later than July 1. So you have 2 regular scheduled council meetings in June, one next week on Tuesday, one 2 weeks later. So typically we need to have the finalized budget no later than 5 PM on Monday of next week. That way it can be attached to the agenda, be reviewed and everything else. My goal would be to get you a final budget no later than Friday. That way you can look it over and make sure you don't see anything that stands out. So we make any revisions before Monday. That way it's not a last minute effort. So if we can get everything wrapped up tonight and look at what the numbers really need to be, we can put those together in the next 2 days. Have it out to you late Thursday or early Friday, and we can kind of go from there. It would go on the agenda and be read the first time on the 9th. And then we finally voted on the last meeting in June and it goes effect on July 1. That answer that?
Yes, thank you.
Councilman Cassoff?
And to be clear, the July 1 deadline isn't some arbitrary deadline we made for ourselves. It's state law.
That is correct.
And if we fail to pass a balanced budget by July 1st, when the state auditor already knows our name and number, that's probably not a good idea because that's another black mark in their book in terms of us not being able to manage our affairs properly.
That is correct as well.
And that, to be clear about what the state auditor is doing, because I'm very familiar with the process. They have a preliminary process. There's 2 ways you can get an audit from the state auditor. Either you can pass an ordinance saying, come audit us, and you pay them 80,000, 100,000, however much time it takes them, and they come in and do an audit based on what city council requests. It's also possible to informally notify the auditor of concerns. The auditor will then request documents from the political subdivision to determine whether those concerns are founded. They do that on their time and they do that on their dime. If they find that there is reason to proceed with a formal audit, they do so on their own initiative and at their own expense. So the city at this point is not being audited. They are considering whether there is reason to believe the city should be audited. At the point when they make that determination, they'll notify the city one way or the other. And if they're doing an audit, they'll say what they're auditing us for. And again, because they are doing it at their initiative and not at the request of council, that would be done at no cost to the city, other than our own time and fulfilling their requests.
Correct.
So, as far as the idea that, well, we shouldn't pass a budget because the auditor's looking at us, it's quite the opposite. Passing the budget is our absolute duty under state law, and the fact that the auditor is looking at us makes it all the more important that we successfully do so.
And also for a little bit of clarity, if you guys don't pass a budget, we have to work off of last year's numbers. So that means nobody gets increases. No increases for fire, no increase for police, no increase for staff. Everything stays status quo. So until you pass a budget, we can't even move into next year's fiscal.
Is there not union requirements for increases?
There are, but we have to navigate those legally.
So if we don't pass a budget and there's a union requirement for a pay increase on July 1st, and I don't know when the union contract pay increases happen, but if we get to the point where a union contract requires a pay increase, we would be unable to do it.
Yes.
Interesting.
So I've been here about 3 years. It's not rocket science. So prior to 2014, not everybody on the police staff, but to make money on the budget, they wrote tickets, typically towards African Americans, to make that budget. Then the consent decree came down. At that time, it was needed. Not saying it wasn't. We should have only did that about 2 or 3 years. That was the largest fine levied on the smallest city ever. It was to prove a point. If we can get that 6 million, half of that, 3 million back, we will be okay. But that's water under the bridge. And all the officers that I see here, I appreciate you guys coming out. Every time you put that uniform on, you're putting your life on the line. Every time. You just want to come back home safe to your families. We do have to pass this budget, but it's something that we can do simply passing Project Butterfly. We wouldn't have to talk about this. That would give the much needed funding this city needs. It's not rocket science, people. If we pass this budget, when we have to cut firemen and police officers, that's going to decimate the morale. We're going to go back to 2015 and 16 when it took an hour for a police officer to come. I don't think we want that. So before we pass a vote on Project Butterfly, some people were saying it's a scare tactic. We're not going to lay people off. It's a scare tactic. Well, we're here now. It's not a scare tactic. It's reality. It's reality. And don't get it misconstrued. We were just voting on the tax abatement, not a data center. That still has to come through planning and zoning. If it's not a green data center, or we don't approve of it, we could say no. We're voting purely on the tax abatement. Even with the tax abatement, we would get more money than we currently get. You can't tax zero. Zero times anything is zero. So I would like some of my colleagues to reconsider Project Butterfly. The boys in blue and women in blue back there, if you can honestly look them in the eye and pass this budget and cut their jobs, something is seriously wrong with you. That's a moral dilemma. That is a moral dilemma. This is not a scare tactic. This is reality. You see how many police officers we have here that came out and showed out? Sometimes voting the right way is not popular. I told my son that. He said, "Dad, that's the definition of bullying." I thought about it. I was like, yeah, it is. So that's all I have to say about that. I just hope we can reconsider so we don't have to keep going back and forth. When a data center comes up, let's deal with that, but don't lump them together. We need that financial injection into this city. Just think about it.
So I didn't really want to go back down the Copeland Road, but my colleague brought it up, so I'll speak to it. The Copeland project is dead. It's not coming back. This idea that it was our savior, I mean, when you have issues with finances, I don't care how much money you bring in, you're gonna have problems, you know. And if I'm not mistaken, we got millions of dollars with ARPA funds and the CARE Act money, in my opinion, that floated the city for a while. But because of mismanagement, that money's gone. And the little money that Copeland was throwing our way, it wasn't going to save the city, you know. And more importantly, our numbers are wrong. We haven't vetted our numbers correctly in years. So how could anybody trust the numbers that were presented to this council as it relates to the Copeland 15-year tax abatement? That's just impossible. And I wish more people would have spoke to that on this council, that we all had concerns about the numbers that were presented. But again, if we're not vetting our financial numbers right, there's no way we can vet an investor's numbers. But for the record, I want to be clear, because my colleague, Councilwoman Covington, I guess she had issue with what I said, but I'll say it again. The state of Missouri, the auditor's office is investigating the city of Ferguson's finances. Now, that doesn't mean we did something wrong, but it also doesn't mean that we're doing everything right. And because it is a formal investigation, which, as my colleague, Councilman Kassoff stated, it could lead to a city audit paid by the state of Missouri. So I think we're clear, we are under investigation. And that was just my point of view, that while you're under investigation, you kind of want to pump your brakes. But this council has the votes to do what it wants to do currently. So I'm ready to move forward in whatever direction the majority wants to move. Thank
I'd
you.
like to ask a question for clarity. You said that these numbers weren't vetted. Are you speaking to the budget or the Copeland project?
So what I'm saying is they were all vetted, but we now know that the financial records presented for the city of Ferguson, they had been operating with revenues that weren't there.
Because I want to be clear that the numbers I gave you in our first budget meeting were actual year-to-date numbers that were in front of you, showing the sales tax numbers, the property tax numbers, the revenues collected from the finance office of actually dollars through the door, times 1.16, as I mentioned, got in the last 2 months. So those numbers
Talking
were
about the
100%
numbers that have
vetted.
been presented year after year. And I mean, not here to offend you, but I mean, we got to be honest. You know, we got to have accountability. Somebody dropped the ball. Now I know we put everything on our finance directors. They're no longer here.
I wasn't in this seat either.
But a lot of it still, the buck stops with our city manager. That's who's supposed to run the show. You know, so again, and that was you at that time. So, but I can't ignore that and say, well, we got this wrong for years, but we definitely know these numbers are right with Copeland. And I'm sitting looking at a budget with bad numbers in it. So that's all I'm saying. I'm not here to attack anybody or to belittle. I'm just being 100. I got concerns about the numbers in general. And those numbers were vetted outside of the city, and I was told they were good. But I mean, again, that project is gone. I know moving forward, this council is going to have more oversight with whatever budget we pass. Like, I think we need to go to a 6-month budget review, because coming into April with new folks coming on council, they're at a disadvantage to get up to speed with what we're doing. So I think we need to have 6-month reviews. We need to be extremely conservative. If we think we have $10 to spend, we need to put up a budget with $4 or $5 and build up our surplus until we get confident. And we got to make sure that we put the right person in that finance director position, because it seems like it's been solely on their shoulders and no one's been vetting their work
And what's,
where we know if it's accurate.
how are you gonna put money in reserves if you don't make cuts to be able to do?
Well, I mean, the cuts are going to get made. I'm just saying, after they pass this budget tonight, we can't do business as usual. I want a 6-month review, budget review, if my colleagues agree. And then I also would like to see the quarterly numbers of where we are throughout the year, so that I don't find out in April that we got a budget problem and the budget started in July 1. That for me, that's a problem. Like, I want to know as soon as there's a problem, hey, we got issues. Because then that can change all of our approach. And we found out officially this council in April. Now, maybe there were conversations with individuals outside, but I found out in April, in the middle of this negotiation, that there was a budget problem. And for me, that bothers me. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I should know as soon as you knew, or or the finance director.
Did
Did we?
Because I did say we needed more revenue sources. I did say that we are not flexible for what we were stating numerous times and before April,
Okay,
way before April. And I also told you that, hey, if we don't do something, we're gonna shut the doors. And I wasn't lying then either.
okay.
And I was very clear in our first meeting that we are changing how we're doing this on a month-to-month basis, with revenues and expenditures, going through it, being very transparent about this, because that's what needs to happen. I agree, it didn't take place with last 3, possibly 4 finance directors, clear back to 2020. But at the same time, I wasn't in this.
Yeah, you were.
Look at the budget I was in charge of.
But I don't know if the council at that time was aware of the overestimated revenue of the city.
And that's probably
I don't
accurate.
know. That's year to year, but I can't speak to those of us that were on council at that
No
time.
matter how we cut this pie, I can't
Yeah.
fix that. All
You
we do
can't.
is approach what we're doing today and move this forward.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
Councilman Castro.
Well, I'm going to agree with my colleague from Ward 2 on one thing. Project Butterfly is dead. There's no point in even talking about it. Copeland is not calling us, asking us, could we move forward? Even if they were, which they are not, it would involve Mr. Onder wanting to move forward, and it would involve a legislative timeline that would stretch months into the future. So it wouldn't help us with this budget, even if we said, oh, somebody had a change of heart and let's do this. So it's dead as a revenue source. Now, to be clear, they did say, first of all, that there was going to be a community benefit payment of $700,000 on July 1st of this year, which coincidentally is about what we're trying to cut here this evening. In addition to some other cuts, but the staff cuts we're making amount to about $700,000. That's what the community benefit payment would have been. It would have also resulted, once the on-site power generation was up and running, in utility taxes of $3 to $5 million a year, according to staff estimates. So does it solve every budget problem forever? No. Would it have made a difference, at least for the next decade, in keeping us afloat and ahead of the curve? I believe it would have. And as far as our financial problems go, look, every one of us buys groceries and pays utility bills and gets our furnace fixed when it breaks. And we know everything that we do has gotten substantially more expensive over the past few years. And what hasn't happened is the growth in revenue of this city to match the increase in our expenses. I don't think anybody's stealing anything around here. I'm excited that we're getting audited, and I think the auditor's probably going to find that our finance directors weren't doing a very good job, and they may find some other things. What I don't expect the auditor to find is that somebody has hundreds of thousands of dollars in a Swiss bank account or a mattress or a bunch of gold bars in their house, as happened with that FBI agent recently. We just have had expenses going up and income not going up, and sooner or later, we started out with a bunch of money in the bank and we spent a little more than we took in, and now we're just about out of money in the bank. And when that happens, you gotta do what you gotta do. We're at the point where we're not going to Ruth's Chris anymore. We're gonna have to go to McDonald's. And that's a bitter pill to swallow if you're used to good steak, but, that's where we are. Now, our city manager has gone over with us in great detail the fact that the only way to cut the amount of money we need to cut to prevent from exhausting our reserves and going into a deficit in our general fund is to make about $600,000 in cuts to personnel. We're not gonna find $600,000 worth of T-shirts and paper clips to cut out of this budget. So we can sit here all night and complain about past finance directors and who should have noticed what. And by the way, I look at the city council packets for the city of Edwardsville, Illinois. They get a monthly finance report from their finance director that shows line by line detail of revenues and expenses. And hopefully when we get a new finance director soon, that wouldn't be a bad idea, because we have been flying blind here on council in terms of budget and just taking the word of whatever document is put in our hand in April, which is really not an ideal situation. I'd like to be able to do a more detailed job over the course of the year of seeing what's going on. And who knows, maybe I would have noticed something a few years ago. Maybe I wouldn't have, I don't know. But the bottom line deal is there's lots of people who didn't notice things. There's mistakes that have been made. There were some finance people who did a poor job, but we have to put on our grown-up pants up here as a council, and we have to make a decision. We have to make it now because it has to be in place by July 1st. It has to have a first and second reading prior to July 1st. And we can't do a month-by-month budget as much as anybody would like to. State law requires that we pass our annual budget and have it in place on July 1st, period. So the members of this council are gonna need to step up and make the decision. Thank you.
Yes, Dave. Councilwoman. Williams.
So on the contrary, Project Butterfly was a tie. Per charter rules, a yes vote or a no vote can actually bring it back up. If we do pass Project Butterfly, I am 100% certain Jim Onder and Copeland would be on board. When they sign that dotted line, that's money. If that payment is going to be July 1st, they might speed that payment up. So it is not dead. And I just want my colleagues to reconsider. And you're right, we could talk about past budget, our woes, whatever. That's irrelevant, in my opinion, when we have something that can bring finances to the city and we don't have to make these painful cuts. I don't want to do it. That's going to make all of our homes less safe. But I believe in the Second Amendment, but I don't want to have to take that in my hands. I want to be able to call 911 and somebody's at my house in a couple of minutes. What's going to happen when we cut these officers? Crime is going to go up significantly. When that happens, your home value is going to decrease. That's your number one asset, your home, but it's going to decrease. Ferguson is going to become Jennings. I don't know how many times I said that. Too many, right. Dalewood. So it is not dead. A yes vote or no vote can bring it back up. That's the last time I'm gonna say it.
I think we've talked enough and pointed the finger at enough people. I think we can start having the department heads, if everybody agree, to come up and we can get this night started and stop pointing the finger. We're not?
I thought we weren't gonna do that. We never got around to discussing.
That's probably
Well,
what we
let me-
should discuss.
I mean, it's, yeah.
Well, I think I said the departments that you guys will cut,
Police and
let
fire.
them come up. We didn't need all the departments coming. up.
Right,
Yeah, I would support police and fire. Yes.
yes, I agree.
You wanna start with police?
But I don't
Yes,
think we need to do.
No.
every department.
Councilman Palmer, you have anything to say?
Yes. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I mean, just sitting here in the audience and listening to some of the dialogue that take place, I understand that each and every one of you all in a tough position this evening in regards to, you know, what the budget looks like for our city. I sent you a piece of communication last week explaining to you the position that the police department is in. I know it was mentioned that we don't want to be here all night, but I think it's extremely important that we talk about what a budget cut would look like for the police department. Because sometimes even the document may not do it any justice. I'm here tonight not only to talk about the budget, I'm also here to talk about and advocate for the residents here for the city of Ferguson. I don't know if you are aware, there's only been one quarter that has passed this year. We have had 9 homicides in this city. Just looking at some numbers here recently, we'd have had 31%, 33% increase in domestic violence, just over a 14-week trend here. As you well aware, we had a couple of homicides that was domestic violence victims here in Ferguson. I'm here as your police chief to tell you that the police department is not in any position to make any budget cuts. That being said, I cannot stand here with a good heart and say that we have to cut something at the police department. And if you allow me to just explain a few things to you, if you can put it on the presentation mode. I'll go through this fairly quickly because again, I know you don't want to be here all night. No. All right, so yeah, okay, I'll let you know. You go to the next slide. I'm gonna go through this real quick. You know, the police department's 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a week. And I know it's easy to say, well, the police department is not special. They're not no more important than any other department here in the city. But I'm gonna say, yes, we are. Because we do. When those 911 calls come in, we can't say, let's put this project on hold. Let's delay this project. Those 911 calls stack up. An example of that this past weekend, I came here Saturday morning for the Coffee with the Chief at 5:01. Leaving there, I went to Forestwood for the wellness program they had there. As I'm driving home, I'm listening to the police radio and we get calls for shots fired. I can't remember what street, where was the street right there? Tessin. Numerous shots fired, shell cases all over the place. All our officers are tied up on that incident. At the exact same time or short time thereafter, we get a call for a violent EDP, emotionally disturbed person at Aldi's. So imagine if you that customer or that manager at Aldi's who's calling the police because you got someone that's acting violently there, but you don't have a police officer to respond to that call. A few weeks ago, Laverne, I can't remember her name, she comes to these meetings quite often. She called the police and had to wait 40 minutes for a police officer to respond. Reason being is because during that time, we had a domestic disturbance. You have 2 police officers that respond to a domestic. You get an accident that happened. Depending on the series of the accident, you can have 2 officers out on that. If you got 2 officers out on a domestic, 2 officers out on an accident, you have 1 supervisor on. That's assuming that all our sectors are filled. Who respond to calls? So when you call and say that there's someone, I heard noise in my basement, I heard someone in my backyard, I see someone in my backyard, who's responding to that? You go to the next one. We talked about it, we can go to the next one. So I've been asked to give a $350,000, well, I've been presented with a $350,000 budget cut. You can go to the next one. My budget is 6.2 million annually. So just say for the sake of rounding out numbers, my 90% of my budget, and you guys have already stated, is geared towards salaries and benefits and personnel. The last 10% is geared towards operational expense. When I say operational expense, we're talking about software that the detectives need to solve crimes. CAD software, internal affairs software, things that we need for the consent decree. When you look at that, that makes about 600, that remaining 10% is about 600 something thousand of our remaining budget. So think about that. If you can't cut personnel, because we know when we get to the utilization rate, then we had 600 something thousand left in the operational budget. So if you take 300 something thousand out of that, how do a police department operate in that capacity? I mean, and maybe someone has the answer. I just don't know how we do that. You can go to the next one. Again, last year, and I've stated this numerous times of coming to the council meeting, we had 35,000 calls for police services last year. 25, 26 officers working during that span. So annually per officer, our officers are handling 1,350 calls per officer a year. The average time that a police officer is on a call here in the city of Ferguson is anywhere from 40 to 45 minutes. And I want you to keep those numbers in mind. Just go to the next one. So the industry standard says that the police department needs to have about 30 to 40% what we call, I'm categorizing it as like wellness time, where you have time to eat lunch, go out, do proactive patrols, do the traffic enforcement our community is asking us to do. When you look at the reality of what's going on at the police department, we're at 100% utilization rate. Literally what I'm saying is that our officers are going from call to call to call. How do you expect proactive policing? How do you expect traffic enforcement? How do you expect for us to go out in the community and do community engagement, get out the car, shake some hands, knock on some doors, if we had 100% utilization rate? Go to the next one. We can go to the next one. I'm not going to go through the math. I sent you guys an email last week. We can go to the next one. Next one. The next one. So again, when we talk about, so I was presented, I don't even have the sheet, but it's the 5 categories. I think it was uniform and appearance and whatever. But anyway, make a long story short, we have a contract. So I was saying, hey, you need to look at wearing apparel was one category. Training and education was another category. Conferences was another one. Memberships, office supplies, and miscellaneous. I think the city is aware that the police officers have a collective bargaining agreement with the city. We have to equip these officers with uniforms. So that's like not even negotiable. I mean, we have to do, I mean, it's in the union contract, that has to happen. So we can't do that. As far as training, so Missouri, just like nursing and any other profession, we have to have so many hours a year for required training for these officers to keep their license. And it's 24 Missouri post hours a year. That's separate from the mandatory consent decree training that they have to have. What's also is not shown up here is that outside of that, these officers also need additional training in regards to building clearance. That's not mandated training, but like building clearance, SWAT training. I mean, things that's outside of what you know, the consent decree and what Missouri Post is asking us to do. I'm responsible for these officers' lives. We have a responsibility in this city to make sure that these officers are getting the required training and things that they need to be able to perform their job effectively. If you can go to the next one. So again, it's where the math comes in at. So obviously, much of our budget is committed to software, dispatch, and let me talk about the dispatch thing. And again, not sure if it's the finance director's fault or who it was, but $250,000 that was allocated towards dispatch wasn't even put in our budget last year. So when we think about this $350,000 that I'm asked to cut, 250,000 of that wasn't even put in the budget last year. Go to that. So what happens? We're talking about cutting the budget. We talk about cutting staff. So essentially what happens, you have fewer officers. What that requires us to do, to mandate overtime. You know what happens when you start forcing people to do overtime? They get fatigued. I'm quite sure our HR director can look at the numbers. We're seeing more sick time increases. We're seeing more people on family medical leave. We have a number of officers that's just dealing with wellness issues. And think about it. If you're working 12 hours a day, going from call to call to call, how would you expect to function? Just imagine after you didn't handle 3 or 4 of those domestic calls that day, you're scheduled to get off at 6:30, come 5 o'clock, you at your 5th domestic violence call. Where do you think your energy gonna be? You can't even think straight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's an officer safety issue. And obviously, it costs more to try to replace officers that we already have here rather than trying to hire new people. It's easy to retain them, so to speak. So training and education, and I don't think that fiscal number is right from last year, but just say it was 90-something, 89,000, 90-something thousand. What I can concede to is that we can go down to about 65,000 from what we had last year. But keep in mind, the reason that the money wasn't spent for training last year, again, we had a number of people that was out on sick leave, family medical leave, and a number of other different issues where instructor couldn't come, we had to reschedule, so some of that money wasn't spent. But that doesn't mean that we don't need the money for training. The next one. You can go to the next one. So currently, as you all aware, we just recently hired 5 experienced officers, which is going to help us out here in a couple of weeks after they go through their training. But we have 3 more experienced officers that's currently in our process from other agencies. So if we decide to cut the budget and we say, hey, look, chief, stop, let's not hire these individuals, we're not going to happen. This is not going to happen. I can guarantee you within 48 hours, this word is going to spread through the law enforcement community, especially up here in North County, that Ferguson has cut officers off in the middle of their hiring process, and that spreads, and that hurts us. We've done too much over the last few years to try to build up what we have now. We're not in a position to cut right now. Go to the next one. It's kind of what I talked about. We can go to the next one. So what I am for, and I talked to the city manager for, I'm all for freezing the assistant chief position. We ain't funded in 3 or filled it in 3 years anyway. That's a 6-digit figure. I'm also for freezing the corporal positions. I mean, again, those positions are not currently filled right now. What I'm not advocating for is the elimination of the position. And obviously, I don't have to preach it to you all. It's the difference between a freeze and eliminating the position. If I eliminate the position, I have to come back to council and ask for those bodies back. I don't think we're in a position to do that. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, with patrol already at 8 officers short, investigations at 1/3 the strength, violent crime rising, reducing police capacity by another 5 to 7 officers, the direction the council wants to take right now. What is it? What is the message that we want to send to our citizens right now? Knowing that what's going on, not only here in Ferguson, but just regionally and just even our neighboring agencies as it relates to crime. Are we in any moral position to sit here and look our citizens in the face and say, let's cut the police budget? And I think if we honest with ourselves, I don't think any of us, can honestly say that. I'm not in a moral position to say that. Go to the next one. You go to the next one. I take any question you all may have.
Oh, yes.
So Chief, I want to start off by saying that I don't think anybody on this council wants to cut patrol officers. I don't think anybody on this council doesn't appreciate the hard work and the dangerous position and the long hours that your people who are out in the street are putting in. And I don't think anybody on this council believes that we can, oh, well, we can just cut some officers out and do without them. I don't think anybody up here believes that, and I don't think anybody's asking that. However, I want to ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
The police, in the general fund, there's about 50 police department employees, and they're not all uniformed officers. There's 22 people on the fire department. And the entire rest of the general fund staff of the city is 54 people. So if you tell me not only can't we spare a patrol officer, and I agree with you about that. I agree with you about that. People dial 911 and we need to have officers in cars, 100%. But we also need to cut $600,000 from our budget, of which the city manager recommended $350,000 be from the police department. There are other options. For example, we could save about $350,000 in salaries by completely eliminating code enforcement in the city. Just fire the entire code enforcement department. That would be an option. IT is only one person. We could get rid of the finance department, and that'd probably save maybe even a little more than $350. The city manager doesn't make anywhere near that, and so, firing the city manager is not going to get us there. So given the fact that we do not have a choice about balancing this budget, we do not have, Mr. Musgrave doesn't have a Powerball ticket in the drawer that's going to bring our budget up to balance. So we're going to have to cut. And what I would ask you is not how many patrol officers to cut, because we don't want to cut a single one. We don't want to cut the detectives that are tracking down the murderers. But maybe there's something else in your department. Maybe there's some other people, and I hate to say this because nobody wants anybody to lose their job. But the fact of the matter is 80% of our spending in this city is on salaries. And nobody, we don't want to cut anybody's salary, and you can't cut salaries because it's a union contract. And if you cut salaries, you wouldn't have any officers left anyway, because we're already not at the top of the pay scale. So I understand that's not going to change. These other departments have made cuts, but so much of the city's resources go to the police department. I believe Mr. Musgrave didn't say cut some patrol officers. He said, here's how many dollars we need to reduce. And I would encourage you again that there's probably something somewhere you could look at that's going to get you there. Because if we don't balance this budget, none of these officers are going to have a job, because there won't be a city of Ferguson. And I guess we'll just incorporate and go to the county. I mean, that's what happens when a city goes bankrupt. All y'all lose your job. I only get paid $250 a month for being on council, so I don't care. But there's gonna be a whole bunch of people lose their jobs if we don't come up with this cut. And we have to ask you to step up. We don't have a choice.
In all due respect, Councilman, I respect what you're saying, what your position. After going through this presentation and you received an email from me last week, if you can honestly say you can look at my budget and you can find $350,000, I would challenge you on to finding $350,000 in my budget to cut.
Well, I'm not gonna sit up here and name names or point fingers or make suggestions because it's not my department, it's your department.
Right.
And I understand it's gonna mean some hard choices. But again, if we don't balance the budget,
Right.
we don't have $650,000 extra money in our general fund to spend, I don't believe, do we?
Right. It's,
I mean, we're literally talking bankruptcy. If it doesn't happen this year, it'll happen next year. We have to make these cuts. And there's not, I mean, do you want us, we could eliminate code enforcement. Is that would you suggest that that'd be a better idea?
Yes.
Sir, I'm not the elected official, but I mean, it's up to the council to decide what they cut and what they don't. What I'm here to do is advocate for the residents here in Ferguson for this police department. And what I'm sitting here telling you, I can look you honestly in the face and say, we don't have a lot of fat in our budget to cut, especially up to $350,000.
Well, I understand.
Councilman Williams.
I think the most important departments in Ferguson are fire and police. Because you put your life on the line every time you put that uniform on. However, I will agree with you, police have more priority in Ferguson because of the consent decree. That's what the whole consent agenda was about, the police department. That's why we had to pay $6 million. And what's gonna happen, I think we're gonna go backwards. When an officer is working 12 hours, back-to-back calls, that weighs on you. People don't know, police officers have one of the highest suicide rates as a profession. When I
Of
get
course.
when I get a text message in the morning, double shootings, I'm like, damn, I know it messes with me, and I'm not responding to the call or seeing a dead body or somebody rush to the hospital with gunshot wounds. I'm just seeing a text message, and it makes me have a horrible day. So responding to it, I could never do that. So I would agree with you. In this situation, all departments are not even because of the consent agenda. We just got out of it. For the people that voted to defund it, we're not under that anymore. And if we would have gave them that money, we would have been worse off than we are now. You know, you guys know what I want to do, but nobody's willing to do that. At least give us a Band-Aid to get over this hump. But because of the consent agenda that we spent $6 million, police do have a priority. So what's going to happen if we have to cut the police department? The calls are going to get longer. These officers are going to be worn out. And you have to make life or death decisions in a split of a second. Somebody might be pulling out a cell phone. You think it's a gun, you shoot them. You might not have immunity. You know, you might be on trial. And so you need to be as sharp as you can because you have something that can take somebody's life. But if you're 12 hours, back-to-back calls, you're fatigued, you're liable to make mistakes. Then we're 2014 again, Mike Brown. Nobody wants that. Thank you.
To your point, Councilman Williams, even if you took the consent decree, just say out of this budget totally, whatever. It's just the crime rate and the violent crime that we're dealing with out here. I mean, I don't think that we truly understand what's going on out here. I mean, North County, we're in a crisis. What North County is going to look like over the next few years, I mean, we seriously need to think about that. do Ferguson want to be part of that being better here? Or do we just want to concede to what's going on around us? Here we are, 2026, with the 9 homicides in the first quarter, and we actually talking about budget cuts when we should be having a conversation on what the police department needs as far as resources.
A couple of questions. So, as it relates to the consent decree, which we're still, that's ongoing, any type of reduction to your budget, especially personnel, I would imagine that would have an adverse effect on us reaching compliance. Is that?
Have an adverse on us reaching compliance, and it would also have an adverse effect on us as far as crime going up.
Okay. And then also you said during your presentation, there was, $250,000 allocated last year that never made it to the, did I hear that right?
No.
And that was related to what?
Our contract with the St. Louis County Dispatch Services. It's a resolution that you all passed when we did that. However, those numbers weren't indicated in our last year's budget.
Okay. All right, and was that supposed to come from the general fund or?
That was actually a budget amendment that was presented to you guys. And it was supposed to be offset with the reduction in the dispatch staff, if you recall.
Okay. And then I guess my last question, and this could be for all city staff. Are furloughs an option as far as our budget is concerned and instead of layoffs? Is that something we could utilize and tweak to get to where we need to go?
We've never went down that road. I could look into it, but I don't have an accurate answer
Right.
for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I say one more thing? I mentioned this in closed session, but the whole plan behind this was to look at additional tax measures in the fall. And the one that we were pursuing was gonna be a sales tax for fire, which would generate about $750,000. The intent was to cut the budget, freeze the positions. If the tax passes, those would immediately be lifted. That would be the first thing restored, was the staffing to police and fire. And then we would look at the other things you cut on a month-by-month basis to see if those could be brought as well. Because I believe everyone on the dais is aware that this isn't the only cut we're looking at that's large scale. We're trying to whittle away at this and then bring back what we need the most after that measure potentially passes, if it did. And so that's just for clarity what we're looking at. I mean, that would be a ballot measure in November. If that 750,000 comes, and it would, then we could immediately restore any staffing that was reduced in both of these departments, just for clarity. And sales tax is collected immediately, so that would be something that would happen January 1st. You don't have to wait a full year for that to be realized.
And that's notable too, but and again, there's no guarantee either that that would pass.
Any other questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Give us a second.
Other than, hope you all took what I said seriously this evening. Again, I'm not, again, I think you mentioned it, Councilman Williams, that, every department, or someone made the comment that every department needs to cut or something like that. I'm telling you, it's not a fair cut across the board. It's different. I'm just telling you from the police department, it is different. And I'm not saying that we're better than any other department, but those 911 calls continue to stack up. We can cut whatever you want to cut. But again, we have to look these residents in their face and tell them that we all decide to cut this budget. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, you guys want fire come up next? All right, Chief Hampton.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna have a presentation like Chief Doyle did. Just know that I'm already down to, and I'm looking at potentially having one or potentially two, firefighters retire. With keeping those numbers in my staff line, but not, and then hopefully after the tax passes, get those, firefighters back. So that's what the fire wants to do. And I think we can sell the 1/4% sales tax for sure. So, but yeah. One, yeah, so I have some firefighters that are up, they're gonna retire next year, year and a half. And I can work with the city manager to see if I can get, them out the door a little quicker. But then we can bring one person back. If I get two, I can bring one person back at a lower rate immediately. And then and if the sales tax passes, I'd be able to bring the other three back.
So for what you're proposing, is that gonna meet that goal of 300,000? Is that?
No, I can go 300,000. That's as low as I can go with minimum staffing.
Now, I had mentioned something earlier to my colleagues. I don't know if you saw the email or not, but
About closing house too.
closing house two, moving everybody to one, is that an option or how much?
It's not really an option because everything's based on response times. You want to get to that scene within 4 minutes. That's from the time you get the call to the time you're on scene. And that's why we have our houses where we have them currently. You have to also remember, fire trucks don't travel like police cars, right? If they go over one of these speed bumps, it's almost a stop for us. And then, Home Depot, and West Florissant area, that's some of our biggest commercial areas that we do have.
Okay.
And then not to have a fire department up there. We run to Walmart quite a bit, Bow Valley quite a bit, Home Depot area quite a bit, and those homes back in there.
So based off what you said, this budget takes effect, you would be cutting one staff
Just
member?
basically one position.
Okay.
I'm not filling the other two until we get back to where we need to be.
And those two that aren't filled currently, are they a part of the cut already, or they're factored into that?
They will be part of.
Is
already
that the same?
factored into it.
Is that the,
He's down 3 talking before, based on
Okay.
the numbers we did.
and are those, is that the same for the police department with the assistant chief and the corporal positions, that's already been included? Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add to what Chief Hampton said. I checked it out today, and the travel time from Firehouse One to the homes on the east side of Ferguson Woods is about 10 minutes. So you're talking about putting lives in danger by not having that house too.
100%. Yeah, I mean, if you need exact numbers, we actually have it on our CAD, and I can send those to you. Because they do take in the fire truck as well. Because like I said, we're not going as fast as police need to be, if it's a life-threatening call, yeah, we're gonna go as fast as we can, but we're still not gonna be as fast as a police car ever. Okay.
I think this is kind of your guys' decision at this point as far as what you want to do next. We've had both department heads that we were kind of scrutinizing the most up here. All the other departments gave you the proposed cuts that equal $250,000. This is the point now where you either make motions, we start making cuts, or we go through the exercise and I play that game tomorrow.
So we have a document with cuts that other department heads besides police and fire have agreed to. I don't know if my colleagues are interested. I certainly am willing to advance those cuts which they've agreed to. That doesn't mean you can't find something else and make a motion tomorrow to cut something else. But if they've already agreed to this $250,000 package of cuts, we might as well approve it and get it on the books. Do you all agree with that?
This is what we were presented with.
Right. Yeah,
I do have a couple questions.
okay, I yield the floor to Counselor Noah.
Okay, so can you explain the consent decree costs that will be cut, the $278,600 exact? Can you just provide some examples of that?
That was not part of that sheet.
That's a different.
Am I looking at it?
I am not
Okay, so
proposing to
now-
cut any of that fund.
Okay, so not what this, not
No,
this.
the one that Dave gave us.
Oh.
That
it must be
that he
overdone.
sent on Friday.
Oh, video. Oh.
Right.
okay. So I had questions for that. Okay.
That's,
Alright.
that's cuts that department heads have already agreed to.
Right. No,
So-
and that's fine. I just still want
We
to
might as well accept
understand,
them.
since the department head, this sheet right here, department heads have already agreed. No,
No,
not this.
that sheet is
This one. Okay, all right, okay.
Which sheet are you?
This is from last week.
No, that was closed session. That's
Okay, all right. Well, never mind. My bad. I thought that's what he was referring to. Okay, well, wait a minute. I don't have any questions yet.
So more of a statement, I brought up furloughs and, you say you could potentially look in it and I'm okay with this portion being approved, but I just wanted to bring to the council's attention, looks like back in November 3rd of 2015, there was a budget work session where the council at that time proposed a furlough, which would be in effect for 1 day per work week, and it was resulting about $350,000 in savings. So again, that's 10 plus years ago, but it looks like in the past they had similar issues with, general revenue, and they used furloughs as a way to at least keep everybody in-house, so just throwing that out there to the council and the city staff to see, because I think there's other years too. I just kind of did a quick search on the city's website
I
and
know it
it
was-
popped up, so.
I know it was considered, it was never done.
Okay, so they didn't move forward with that, okay. All
'Cause
right,
that would have affected everybody across the board, and you still have problems with contracts and everything.
okay. All right, I'm just, just brainstorming, trying to save jobs. But yeah, I'm good with the amended part that, Nick, that you brought up.
Okay, so what we're saying is we're okay with this, but we could amend this if we.
You can add Councilor.
Okay. Okay. Just want to make it very clear. I am not okay with cutting jobs. I'm okay with freezing jobs. I understand that we have enough if we have to do too. Right now, we're in a hard spot. That's not the word I want to use. We're in a very hard spot. I know a lot of police officers in Ferguson. I know a lot of the fire. I was hoping to get to this number before we got to this point, and we talked about it a lot. I am okay with this. I know that if we vote, we're voting on a dollar, and not a person. I truly understand. I appreciate the hard work you put into this. Also taking a bigger point, and you just got this position not too long ago. But I just want to make it clear on where I stand. Yes, we got a dollar amount. We have to, but we gotta come from something. That is the big. So I'm okay with us doing this, and if we can work through something out, I would love to, but I mean, for us who work with money and everything else, know how hard it is for a budget, and we at this spot right now. So when it comes up out there on Facebook and in the world, we know how we got here. We know how we didn't help.
Well, and I'm talking on the fly. I have not vetted what I'm gonna say now, so please don't take it as gospel. And I want that to be abundantly clear. Our budget is annual, so it's an entire year. If we approve a cut to the salary line in these departments, technically we don't hit that number realistic till February, March, April. I will need to talk to legal, but I wonder if we couldn't do a freeze on the staffing, knowing the budget number. And then as we're monitoring monthly with you guys, we may have to go down the road of layoffs because of budget. But I don't know if that's something we can look at pursuing or not, if that makes sense. Cause I mean, like I said, I'm just talking off the cuff right now. I have not vetted that. And I don't know how that works.
Well, the problem is if you say, well, they're not gonna hit that number till later, then what about when they hit that number?
Correct. You're still gonna have to cross that bridge.
$350,000 that you've got to save in 3 months instead of 12 months. What are you gonna do then? That puts you in an impossible situation.
I agree 100%.
So I understand what you're saying, but I think it makes an even more dangerous assumption than some of the false assumptions that we've been guided by before. I also want to say real quickly, although I asked for my colleague's opinion on moving forward with the cuts that the department heads have already approved. Traditionally, I make a lot of motions and seconds up here. I believe that our budget, because it is such a difficult thing we're doing, needs to proceed with the consensus of everybody up here. So I'm not going to be making motions and seconds. I'm going to be putting my input up here, but I'm going to count on some of my colleagues that maybe aren't on my side of the quote unquote aisle, although we don't have an aisle here. That those motions and seconds would be coming from there, because I don't want to drive a budget process and pass a 4-3 budget. This budget will either pass by 7-0 or it won't have my vote.
I'm okay cutting what the department heads have already cut. But if it comes to cutting the budget for the police, I'm gonna abstain. So I'm just telling you right now, I just can't do it. I can't look them in their eye and cut their jobs. I just can't do it. I appreciate Chief Hampton figuring out a clever way to reduce his staff as painless as possible. But if it comes to cutting the police budget, I am going to abstain.
So the budget only needs 4 votes to pass. You know, this whole, you need a consensus. I mean, I don't know where that came from, Councilman. I mean, if you are a man of your conviction, stand tall and deliver. I mean, so I mean, we gotta, Councilman Williams told you what he's doing, so do we need to just kill it now, or what, are you not gonna vote, or you're not gonna support it? But I think that trying to, I guess, sway us into voting and motioning, I mean, you've been doing that, that's what you do, that's what you do well. So I'm just gonna say, vote your conscience and vote what you think is right, but don't try to sway any other individual members of this council to go your way. You know, if you believe this is what needs to be done, do it, man up and do it. But don't sway and say that we all need to be on one accord, because we have never been, and we probably never will be, and that's fine. But please don't try to sway folks or really almost intimidate people to go your way and to get what you want, because you know I'm not going to motion for it. So if you think that's what we need to do, just do it.
And see, this is precisely what I'm talking about. I don't want the budget to go quote unquote my way. I want the budget to go the way that is best for the city, and I would like all the members of this council to come to a consensus about that. And Mr. Franklin is good at one thing: letting you go out on a limb and then sawing the limb off and blaming you for being out there. And that's not going to happen on this budget. So whether we cut the police department or not, whether we cut the fire department or not, whether we cut what the department heads of other departments have approved of or not, that's not going to be something that Councilor Franklin is going to go on Facebook next week and say, Kassoff cut this. That's going to be everybody. We are going to stand together and pass a budget. It's grown-up time here. Time to quit playing these political games, Councilor Franklin. we need to come to an agreement on the budget. It has to be balanced and it has to be passed by July 1st by state law. So if you want to play political games, we're going to have a problem up here because I'm not going to get involved in that.
Okay, so, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So, okay, everyone for clarity, these are the cuts that the department heads have agreed upon, which totals $263,000.
$250,430. There was a
Okay.
few additions, and they're in the column that say addition, and there was a ton of reductions that are labeled as savings. The top portion totals $250,430. The second section at the top is the Parks Fund, because I had all my department heads participate in that, so they realized the savings of $12,250.
Okay, thank you. Have a few more comments. Okay. So as I'm looking, while I don't disagree with this, I just want to, everyone to be aware that it says not hiring a third code officer. So right now we have 2 code enforcement officers. Okay, so this is the time for us to be transparent, honest. It's not about hurting anyone's feelings. We're all responsible. So we have an issue with code enforcement, and everyone knows that. We have residents who are consistently voicing their concerns about the way our neighborhoods look. They are reporting the concerns and they're just not getting the follow-up. I personally am reporting concerns. Again, this is not about blame. It's about making the process better because we are going to cut a code enforcement officer. We haven't had 3 code enforcement officers for how long now? About 3 months, would you say?
2 to 3.
Okay, so we really aren't, what are we missing? Yes, I would love to have that additional person in that position so that I can explain to residents. But when you go to these neighborhood meetings or when you talk to residents, they're like, well, if we have code enforcement, how come this, how come that? In the council meeting last week, I even brought up a couple properties and you're explaining, city manager, well, this is all that we can do, and it's just not enough. So when you have people in place and they're not producing results, that's concerning. And I'm having this conversation because this is a conversation that needs to be had because we have so many properties that, okay, the vacant properties, they're harder to work. I get that. I have vacant properties on my street. I call about the bank owns it or the bank doesn't own it. Now they don't want to maintenance the property. We report it to our code enforcement. You get a response from code enforcement. Thank you for reporting this. We're working on it. 3 months later, it's the same. But there are so many properties where the people are occupying and it's the same. And it's just a lot, there's just not a lot of resolution, and so again, I'm having this conversation because this is the time to have it. We are going to cut that position, not hiring a third code enforcement person, which means they're going to be 2 people, I guess, touring the neighborhood and officers. But again, this is not the first time that this has occurred. And again, it is about producing results because when you have people in place, you have to see results to justify the job. So I just wanted to say that I don't see Public Works in here, and I'm glad.
You're looking at the
I-
worksheet.
I'm looking at this packet.
There was reductions made before that packet.
You said there's what?
There was reductions to staff to other departments made before that packet. You have another sheet of paper there that shows we're not hiring assistant city manager. We're not hiring the network administrator. We're not hiring the assistant finance director. We're not hiring the code enforcement officer. We're
Right.
not hiring, we already talked about the assistant police chief, the corporals. We're
Right.
not hiring another mechanic. We're not hiring common laborers anymore for part-time and street maintenance. We have cut positions across this entire budget to get to this point.
Right. No, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying it's fine, like I want that to happen. I'm just making a point that residents want to see results and code enforcement is important. Police, all of the staff positions are important, but right now I am placing an emphasis on code enforcement.
And as I mentioned in the last staff meeting, there's only so much code enforcement can do with properties to begin with.
Exactly.
The biggest thing they're gonna get is a $200 fine per our ordinance and a slap on the wrist. Legally, we don't have a lot of repercussions to produce those results that you're speaking to.
Exactly, but And I agree with you. That's what I'm explaining. So when you talk about cutting or not hiring, not filling that position, then
It's gonna get worse.
I mean, and it's a possibility that it could be worse. But the thing is, it's kind of worse now. It really is. And I'm just making a point of that. And I said that before a couple meetings ago, we have to learn how to do more with less. How can we increase productivity? How can we follow up on these concerns better? Because again, it's harder when the properties are vacant, but there are a lot of properties that are not vacant. People are living in the properties and it's like, okay, they're just not paying their trash bill for years. Okay, we're just reporting it and nothing is happening. Or you have businesses, you report businesses or residents report these concerns and it's like, well, Councilwoman, no, I reported this. There's nothing happening. I've been reporting this for years. What's going on? I hope everyone is understanding that the point that I'm making, it is code enforcement, public works is not like police and fire. They are out there saving people's lives. This is no discredit to the departments, but we have to, how can we do better? Is what I'm asking, really. How can we do better so our neighborhood does not take a further decline as we're having this conversation about cuts? Because to a lot of residents, it's as if, okay, you have people in these positions, but we're not seeing any results. And the second comment is regarding, because it was brought up, the 4th cent sales tax that could possibly pass, right? I mean, that could. We can't count that out, but residents want to see a result. Again, like if we're saying we're going to put this 4th cent tax on the ballot and because we need the money to sustain the city, so we don't have layoffs, so that we can support our city better. Residents need to see that. They need to understand where their money is going because if we're asking them to better support the city needs help. We have got to, just to make a long story short, we have got to do better. And there is always room for improvement. No one can tell me that it's not. I personally have worked vacant properties in my subdivision. And you know what? In the past, all it took was simply a call to the mortgage company. They came out and they started mowing the grass. So all I'm asking for city staff, for you city manager, for everyone to understand that, yes, we have got to improve on our customer service. We have got to produce better results for our residents. Because if not, it's like, why would they support an increase in the sales? Why would they? If nothing is going to change or get better for them. I know it's, look, I know it was a long walk to get there, but that is definitely an ask of everyone. And I'm not saying that no one is not doing their job. But all I'm asking is what can we do better? And when we're in the council meeting and residents, they hear us speaking and saying, well, that's just all we can do. Or we have staff, we have 12 people in that department, but people aren't coming into work. And so we're never fully staffed in that department in a week. Then people are reaching out and saying, well, Councilwoman, no, that's strange to me. How come people aren't coming to work? And this is happening on a consistent basis. Well, what are you all doing about it? And these are conversations that we have had in public session, So again, I'm just asking for us to really do the best that we can do to help improve our neighborhoods. And I'm willing to support this 4th cent fire department sales tax. And when residents ask me about it, I can't tell them how to vote, but I can encourage it. I can encourage approval of it. But there's room for improvement, city manager, that's all.
I think to answer the last question, I think we're very clear about the 4% sales tax that it immediately would go back to restoring the positions that potentially would be cut from both police and fire. So that's what you're looking at. So to answer your question about the results or what do I
No,
get for it?
Well, I appreciate that, but more the results of when the customer service, the response time, when residents leave voicemails, getting return calls back, not calling me or emailing me and saying, Councilwoman Noah, well, I did this, I reported this 6 months ago. I still haven't heard from anyone. I mean, let's be honest about it. Again, I'm not saying that people aren't working. This is not to downplay anyone's efforts, but let's be honest, there are a lot of concerns about operations and productivity and things being handled in a timely manner, things that we can't control. Some things I understand it takes longer for some results to be produced, but some of them, again, when you have businesses that are getting a business license every year and we're asking them to keep your grass mowed. Yes, we want them in the city, but what are we doing to encourage that? And then residents see this and they're saying, Councilwoman Noah, this was like this last year.
Point of
Nobody
order.
says anything.
Are you lecturing or asking a question?
Talking to the city manager and I'm explaining why I said what I said. Again, I know it's a hard conversation. People don't want to hear, we don't want to talk about it. It's the elephant in the room, but it is the elephant in the room. And all I'm asking for is that we just work to our best to improve services for our residents before we make a commitment to ask them to pass any sales tax. And I'm willing to support the sales tax. I'm willing to support you all, but I just want to do the best by our residents. That's it. Thank you, Mayor, for the time. I'm done.
I just have a quick comment about code enforcement. And your point is well taken, Counselor Noah, that code enforcement is something that's heavy on a lot of people's minds. It is my observation, and the head of code enforcement is here this evening, and I know he would confirm this, that there's a lot of instances where we in fact have sent a building inspector out. We've documented code violations. We've sent notices to the resident or the property owner. They haven't responded. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, the process when you have a person who just flat out won't comply is very time consuming. It takes, you've got to go to court. It takes months. The property still looks like trash. And to the person who lives next door and sees that every day, it looks like the city's doing nothing. When in fact, the city is doing everything they can as quickly as they can. And then at the end of the road, state law limits most ordinance violations to a $200 penalty. So no matter how bad of a violation it is, we can only fine them so much. And we're not going to go onto somebody's property and we're not going to paint their house and replace broken windows. We don't have the resources for that. So then it goes to dangerous buildings, and that's a whole nother process which takes a really long time. And probably should, because you're talking about seizing somebody's home and demolishing it. And we don't want that to be something that the city can just wave a magic wand and do it in a couple of weeks and bring in the bulldozers. But it is frustrating to people in the neighborhood. And in the long term, the answer isn't so much code enforcement as it is improving the environment of our city in ways that eliminate the need for code enforcement. I used to live in Creve Coeur, and in Creve Coeur, they didn't even have occupancy inspections and they didn't need them. They probably spend almost nothing on code enforcement out there because people have money. And when you have money, you hire people and they fix your property. And there's the occasional person who doesn't. We had a retired doctor, 90-year-old guy who moved to Florida and just abandoned a house in Creve Coeur. And it eventually had to be demolished. And I think the city did have to take action there, but it's very rare. We have problem properties probably on almost every block in the city. And, I don't know that it's so much the lack of a third code enforcement officer as it is the fact that once you document something, it's the beginning of a long process, which maybe we need to, anybody can go on OpenGov and see. You can look up an address on OpenGov and see what the status is. It's not very friendly. The site's kind of slow. People don't understand what they're looking at. But I get inquiries on properties, and that's the first thing I do is go look it up. And if there's already a case there, I let them know, yeah, the city's already aware of this, and here's what we've done so far. And so, you know, I'm glad that the code enforcement department has said they can do without that third person, because that's a big chunk of money and we need money. So thank you for that.
Just for clarity, the city of Creve Coeur, their code enforcement is run by their building division. So they have code enforcement, just like Ferguson is just run through the building division. Quick question about what this looks like. So what I'm hearing is fire one person. How many employees potentially would be cut from the police department if we were to go forward with this?
I sent you guys an email earlier. Fire was looking at 3, police depends what they're looking at. It could be as few as 2, it could be as many as 5. Salaries vary by position.
So 2 to 5. I just want the public to know what we're talking about with these dollars amounts, because these come down to bodies at the end of the day. So we're looking at 2 to 5 from the police and
3 to 4
I mean, 3 to 4
from fire.
from 3 to 4 from fire, and then 2 to 5 from police.
That is correct.
Okay. So I'll ask this question. I would imagine the majority of our residents, or, you know, they're all for their police department. So is there any wiggle room with that dollar amount between the two departments?
I told you guys earlier, it's up to you how you want to cut it.
Well, I've offered some recommendations tonight, you know, from the very beginning of things that we could do. I don't think anybody on council is really taking me up with any of those ideas. Like I say, I'm interested in the process of furloughs. Would like a little bit more info from our attorney regarding what you mentioned and what I mentioned about month to month, which, you know, like I said, I don't even know if it's legally an option, but it's something I would like to be advised on how it works. But I think you've answered all the questions I have for this evening. Thank you.
So the ask of the PD and the fire department is to get us to balance. We've already cut a significant amount from basically everywhere, correct?
Correct.
And assuming we get to a balanced budget this year, you know, I don't like to assume a lot of things, but assuming we get to one, assuming a 1/4 cent sales tax makes it to the ballot and passes, that just replaces those 5 to 8 positions that we're talking about right now, correct?
That is 100% correct.
So that would still leave us with a city next fiscal year that has no pension contribution. Is that correct?
That is correct.
A city with no assistant city manager,
That is correct.
assistant fire chief,
That one's not cut, but depending on what they cut, yes.
assistant police chief,
Correct.
assistant finance director,
Correct.
code enforcement officer,
Correct.
network administrator,
Correct.
six police corporals,
Correct.
part-time street maintenance workers,
Correct.
parks maintenance worker,
Correct.
city mechanic.
Correct.
So even if we pass a sales tax increase that funds those few positions, we're still gonna be without all of those positions the city has historically had.
Correct.
And how many roads are we gonna pave this year?
Only STP grants, you're looking at a total of 4.
So looking forward, assuming we pass a balanced budget, a 1/4 cent fire protection tax or sales tax passes, we'll be without all those positions, without a pension contribution, and without any roads that aren't grant eligible being repaired the following fiscal year and every fiscal year going forward unless our revenue situation changes.
Correct.
That's not a good position to be in. A lot of these positions that have already been reduced have been here for a long time. I haven't foreseen any of our debt obligations coming due for 3 or 4 years.
It's 4.
And it's a fire truck, right?
Correct.
Which probably just got into a collision and is probably gonna be 10 years old, right?
Correct.
What else is paid off in the near future?
I mean, a lot of our debt comes due in 5 years with community center, police department, those buildings, but that's gonna be the big ones. We also have, it's not gonna help the general fund, but a lot of that fleet lease is relieved next year in capital, so that's gonna help us when we start looking at potential apparatus, that kind of stuff as well, because you're freeing up a lot of money on that. Realistically, we need to look at two tax measures. As I told you guys before, we need to look at the sales tax and the possible property tax. Sales tax is a little bit less, property tax is a little more significant, and that would help in the long term. But bottom line is we need additional revenue. And so those are either tax measures or businesses moving in and paying taxes. Those are your two options. So you're looking at development or you're looking at taxes.
Or increases in property values, which takes time.
Correct.
Yeah, all these measures take time, and also there's the outlier to assume that it passes. A lot of this assumes these things pass, and that's where I had kind of just briefly discussed a couple of things with you. I thought we could maybe do relatively soon, you know, a lot faster than a tax increase.
Yeah.
You know, but those still don't solve our problems either. You know, I mean, we're talking about, you've already reduced $1 million in positions without even talking about these fire and police positions.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Williams.
So if we pass Project Butterfly, will we have enough money for those other positions and to keep the police officers and the firemen going forward?
I mean, if you would have passed it in theory, yes, but like everybody has alluded to, I don't know that it's still on the table from the investor's standpoint, truthfully.
All right,
I have not heard from either side.
last question. Like, let's suppose a civilian wants to get a bank loan. They will put their residence up for collateral. So I know our pension fund is pretty healthy. Is there any way we can legally leverage, without taking money out, but leverage it to get some type of finances in the city? And if we default, then it would attack our pension. I'm just throwing that out there legally.
Not that I'm aware of.
Is there any way you can check on that legally? Not rate it,
Yeah.
but use it as collateral
I
to
can
make
ask
it
the
a low
question.
interest?
I have a meeting Thursday with some financial people.
Okay.
Just for clarity.
Mhm.
In this sheet right here, cuts. The cuts are being made to positions that are filled. And to, coding.
That's correct.
So we're not at this point, any fire. With this pack.
With that packet, you are correct. Yes, with that packet, that statement is correct.
As far as the taxes. I'll make it clear that I am for that. That would help our situation, but how soon would that help us? If it goes on the, we're able to get it in the August of that.
We cannot get on the August ballot, it'll be the November ballot. I'd be comfortable if it passes, because the way the budget runs, we could fill the positions within 30 days. I mean, we would literally see the money January 1st, so. And you have to remember, you're only paying half the year's salary because you're filling them at that point, so it's back and forth. I feel like it's a wash.
I do have a problem with cutting any fire and any law enforcement. I do have a problem with cutting any fire or law enforcement. I hate to even think of the fact of being out of a job or getting laid off. I've walked that road before. And it's not a pleasant road. I've interviewed basically every officer that's sitting in this room right now on the citizens interview panel. And it's really hard for me to see them here. It's easy, well, let me put it like this, it's easy for me to see them here supporting their position and supporting the chief. I wasn't here on the last budget or the budget before. And to me, this is very serious for the continuance of our city and within a good budget. And I'm just confused on every budget report that we've had from the auditor that he was saying we're good, we're okay, we're looking good. And right now, you're telling me, hey, wait a minute, no, we're not. And that's, that is what I think about a lot, because I've seen all from back in the previous Knowles, back before him, I saw those auditors come in and talk that we were good. So if I missed something or if they missed something, I think that has to be addressed. Because we were going on what they say in their words. And obviously there was a lack of communications or a lack of paperwork, or, I don't know how the accounting firm comes in and does their audit on our budget and on our spending. But just from a point of view, we should have knew this, to me, a long time ago. I am really blown back on this. And I know we've had other city managers that was shuffling money around. I remember Jeff Bloom was here. He was shuffling money around. Previous people were shuffling money around. It was like a shell game. And I was scratching my head there. How can you go from here to there and here, there to here? And addressing the code enforcement, I remember when we had 9 code enforcement people. It just doesn't work like that now. We've had to really trim back on that area. And it's, I'm not saying the citizens don't, sometimes squeaky wheel gets the grease. I mean, government doesn't work with a snap of the finger. There's a lot going on in our city, and we do have a lot of areas that do need code enforcement on, but they're out there. So if this packet helps us maintain or helps us get closer to that number that we need, I'd be willing to make a motion, and I hope I get council's approval on this, that we do pass the cuts that are in here. And city manager, I don't know if you have something to address of what I said, and you have the floor now. I'll
Yeah.
get to you in just a minute, Mr. Williams.
I just want to be
Councilman
clear. I've been here over 12 years, and you alluded to it. When Jeff Bloom was here, he talked about the general fund and how we need to change directions and everything else. It was very apparent. I alluded to this in the first meeting. The ARPA funds were a Band-Aid. We were still budgeting to take money out of the reserves. We have every year. The problem I'm forecasting for you is that the reserves will run out. When you look on page 1 of your budget book, you see what the reserves are supposed to be at for the general fund in particular at the end of this fiscal year, $896,000. If we don't change that, next year we're looking at $574,000. Our payroll is $400,000 a cycle. That means we have enough for 1.5 payrolls out of reserves to run. So if revenue stopped coming in, we would make it literally for 1 month. And that's the problem we're trying to forego. We need to balance this so we can start getting money back into the reserves so we can move this forward. And what I'm trying to do is correct that trajectory right now. It's not a new problem. We've been fighting this since 2014, the year I started. I promise you, we've just been budgeting wrong.
And thank you for the clarity. I appreciate that, because, this is, when you're sitting out in the audience, you don't get the full scope of everything that goes on within
And
our budget.
point blank, and you know this, the fan case, that was $2 million that came out of reserves.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about literally a $6 million swing in 2 years with ARPA dollars and fans when it comes to our reserves. That's big. I mean, that is literally almost a third, if not half of our normal general fund budget. And those all went in less than a year period.
Thank you.
Yeah.
City Manager. Councilman Williams and then Councilman Palmer.
Mayor, I think everybody's okay with the cuts that most of the department heads have. The issue I have is cutting police. Like I said, I'm gonna abstain, but the cuts that most department heads are already giving us, I'm a yes for that. I just have an issue cutting the police. In good faith, I can't do that. So whether I stay in Ferguson or move, I do not want to go down in history as a vote to cut the police when we turn into Jennings. Thank you.
Councilman Palmer.
Not totally relevant right now, but I am curious as I don't see this side of the city's functioning, but how consistent is St. Louis County in dispersing our revenue?
Honestly, it depends on which taxes you're looking at. Marijuana, for example, comes from the state and that is sporadic. It might miss a month or two, but for the most part, St. Louis County is pretty consistent when it comes to our sales tax and property taxes.
So there isn't like an immediate concern that they might not send us our sales tax revenue for a month or two, is
No.
there? And then checks aren't clearing or something?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any other conversation for the city manager? Thank you. Is there a motion and a second on the floor to pass the document that the heads of our city cut for our budget, to help our budget?
So move, Naquita Noah.
Again. Yes, I do.
So then you just say.
I do.
Well, you can second.
I can second, it's fine. She didn't get, okay. You didn't hear his,
Motion and-
so I just made a motion. Did you hear my motion? Okay.
Second, I second it then. I second it. May we have a vote, please? Oh, yes. Sorry, Councilman Palmer.
Is there a way we can better reference the budget document before us? Cause there's a lot of budget documents. I mean, can we reference this a little bit better? I know,
Okay.
but.
You wanna call it
See
the-
budget documents.
You want to call it the
Thank you.
document that was emailed to you on Friday at 11:33 a.m.?
That's a lot better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Does the clerk have a copy of this?
Yeah.
Okay. If you can make sure she knows it's one I thought.
So do I need the state commission?
Completed.
Ready for roll call?
Yes.
Okay. Councilwoman Noah. Mayor Shropshire,
Aye.
Councilman Franklin,
Aye.
Councilman Palmer,
Aye.
Councilman Williams,
Aye.
Councilwoman Covington,
Aye.
Councilman Cassoff,
Aye.
The motion passes. Ayes have it. Yes, city manager.
There was just other budget cuts that I emailed you guys. I don't know how you want to proceed on, if you want to or not. That's up to you. I've given you everything I can.
Yes.
I mean, there was 3 options. There was not funding the pension plan. There was police, there was fire. Those were your options. I'm looking for direction.
Councilwoman.
Right, this is the one that, I have that. Yeah, okay. I have that. That's from last week from the closed session. Okay. Okay, thank you. And I appreciate that as city manager. It's just that I work a full-time job too, and I've been outside all day, so, but, well, most of the day. But you gave us this last week. And so you want a motion if we're willing to approve this? And this is just to freeze until we can get hopefully get the sales tax approved. Okay, and so I asked the question earlier for clarity. On the form, it does say consent decree calls. So this is not the form.
It's not what I emailed you today.
Okay,
What
I don't
gave you-
have
what
that
you-
then.
What you have here. I'll pull it.
I don't have that.
I emailed you today. Just this, and this.
Remove the bottom. Fine.
Yes. Those were all suggestions to look at.
You would like a motion?
I'm asking council what they want me to do. I emailed earlier today that we either need motions to make cuts or I'm gonna go through and balance a budget and give it to you to approve. That's my directive. That's what I am supposed to do.
And these are just, again, it's just it's a freeze for fire and police. It's a freeze.
It's whatever you want to make the motion.
no,
That's
on
what
the-
I suggest.
on the phone.
Yes.
Don't go away. You might well stay up there. Are you done, Councilman Noah? Okay. Councilman Castle.
Okay, so procedurally speaking, if council does not come to an agreement on what you've recommended, you simply write those recommendations into the budget, give us the budget with the thing we refuse to vote on, and then we can either pass or not pass that budget.
You are 100% correct.
Well, that'll be fun. Thank you.
Councilman Palmer.
With some level of comfort, you can say that foregoing this year's pension contribution won't be detrimental to the city.
I can. The pension is currently 97% funded. Based on the last actuary report, the investments have been doing well. It's not going anywhere. Most state pension funds are funded well below that percentage. So
Is the direction of the investments within the pension fund governed by the pension board?
it is.
Okay. Are you privy to the meetings of the pension board?
I'm still on the board technically. I haven't been removed yet because they don't have a replacement. So yeah.
Do they have conversations ongoing about how aggressive or conservative they are? Has there been relatively recent discussions about that?
Yes.
Okay.
We've moved some allocations to cash and some other things because of the way the market has shifted and that type of stuff. Yeah.
So the pension board is actively monitoring market conditions along with professionals to make sure we're making some sort of.
UMB handles it professionally. We meet quarterly and evaluate that, and then they base their directive on what the pension board kind of moves them to do. Yes.
I make a motion to forego the $600,000 pension contribution this year for the next fiscal year 26-27.
A second.
That we forego the pension contribution.
Much is that?
600,000.
Yeah, I would say, can you just for clarity, because I don't want it to have the number, I would say just forego the pension contribution as budgeted.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I amend my motion to forego the pension contribution as budgeted.
Question.
I second it already. Well, I second it. I second it.
Questions.
Councilman Williams.
city manager, if we don't fund the pension, will that get us out of the red and we don't have to cut police officers, or
No, sir.
it would?
No,
I thought you said we needed 600.
$1.1 million.
he's not getting this pension.
So, the packet that you emailed, how much was that?
So when you started, we were $322,000 in the red with the original packet. Staff has found 250,000. On top of that, you need another 1.1 million. You just went with pension, that's 550,000. You still need about 600,000. Welcome to my sleepless nights.
If we skip the pension contribution this year, what percentage funded are we?
It's a guess, but considering we've skipped it a few years in the past, we dropped from 100 to about 97, depending on market values and everything else. I'd guess you're gonna come in between 94 and 95,
Okay, so we're still highly funded, even not doing anything.
100%.
But at some point, we gotta come back and start.
At some point, you will have to revisit this. Like, we're not gonna miss pension payments. We're not gonna not pay people their pension. That is not in jeopardy at any point. It is well funded. I believe there's about $33 million in it currently. So that's not a problem, but you will keep dwindling the percentage it is funded if we continue to do this on a regular basis. You do not want to do this, but we are in a dire situation currently.
And how many pensioners are we funding annually? How many people are in the pension?
That
You don't know.
varies. So the pension is complicated. You have to be 8 years vested in order to be part of the pension. It's based on years of your life, how long your life expectancy is, your job performance, all those things. We have about 108 pensioners that we are paying right now, but that actuary report takes into consideration everybody that's currently on staff, everybody that's worked here, that's got vested up to that 8 year point period in the past. So it varies. The thing that saves us right now, if we're honest, is we don't have a lot of retention. A lot of our employees are young right now. We don't have a lot of older staff. And so like, we're not having to worry about their long, but as people stay and they get vested, of course, that number is going to vary year to year. It's a whole equation.
Any other questions? Any other conversation? It's been. Roll call, yes, roll call.
Councilman Palmer,
Aye.
Councilman Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Shropshire,
Aye.
Councilman Cassoff,
Aye.
Councilwoman Covington,
Aye.
Councilwoman Nolan, Councilman Williams.
Aye.
It been, passed that the pension payment is put on hold, so the 26.7 year budget. Councilwoman Miller.
I have a question, not about the pension, about the, police retirements, hiring freeze. Can we discuss that?
Ask your question.
Okay, so Chief Doyle stated that he has 3 candidates in the hiring process, which means that if we vote to approve the potential cuts for fire retirements, police retirements, hiring freeze, that we cannot complete those hires.
If you look at your paper, technically, the department is already over on their officer headcount. And they have
Look at
3 in
which
the
paper?
pipeline that are
Which-
being hired right now.
I'm sorry, sir, look at which paper?
The one that you were
Okay,
given tonight,
right
staffing
here.
paper.
So you say that again, I didn't hear you clearly.
If you look at your paper, the actual category police officer, they are overstaffed currently.
Okay, police dispatch, police officer. So,
So what they did for the 27 budget, they separated detectives and police officers in their narratives, which gave them 27 officers, 3 detectives. They're currently at 3 detectives, 32 police officers, 3 in the pool to be hired. That would take them to 35, according to the payroll records.
So again, for clarity, so you,
I budgeted for 27 officers and 3 detectives. The
So we're
number that
looking-
needs to be cut is outside of that.
so the 3 that are in the pipeline would not be hired.
You are correct.
Okay, just want to make that clear for everyone. Make that clear, so, and, fire doesn't have, we're not gonna hire any fire staff, but as Chief, you were stating earlier, that you have 2 positions that you did not fill in the budget. Is this correct? Did I understand you correctly?
They're not.
You have 3 positions that'll be on hold that are not, so there won't, will there be any, okay, it says fire retirements, police retirements. How many each?
We're getting into individuals, so we can't talk about that in open session because you're talking about named individuals.
Well, not, I'm not asking.
What we're
that.
saying is to propose an amount and they could look at retirements to see if that's a way that they could
I think,
achieve that dollar.
I think she might be looking at personnel for retirement.
No, I want to get an understanding and I want the public to get an understanding. That's why I'm asking. The question is over so that, because the community, they're listening. So, okay. And how come we cannot make those amounts the same?
You
How
can.
come we did?
You can.
We can't. I mean, I would like to. I mean, I think if we're going to.
Somebody has to make that motion.
Okay.
I can't make a motion.
No,
for the
that's
council.
fine. That's fine. I just want to, again, it's about clarity. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Williams.
So you said 1.1 million, right?
Technically 1.4, but yes,
1.4.
was the total number going into this budget.
So what are we short? 700,000?
You're short about 600 right now.
All right, thank you. And fire was how much? The fire,
What we had talked about was 250 and 350, but now Councilwoman Noah is suggesting 300 and 300.
Councilman Palmer.
So-
Councilwoman.
So we're currently over approved staffing for this budget.
That's correct.
How does that happen?
They went through the hiring process without approval.
And we're about to be 15% over.
Correct.
Okay.
And I cannot speak for the department. I have a feeling that they're looking at total head counts, because corporals were not filled, assistant chief, that kind of stuff. That's what the percentages are based off of. When you look by line in the budget, police officers, that's what these numbers are reflecting.
I got you. So that number, the overstaffing, one could guess that there was gonna be some movement. with-
Potential promotions, filling of positions, that kind of stuff, upward mobility.
Okay,
But if you're freezing the corporal positions, and the assistant, that ceases to be existent, and now we're in a position where we're overstaffed within that department.
with the officer position.
Correct.
Okay. I know we discussed it briefly during the budget process. Has this budget we've been presented account for disposition of city assets as revenue?
It is in capital, yes.
Okay, so if we were to have a gain from the sale of an asset, that goes into capital or that goes into the general fund?
That goes into the capital fund.
Why?
That's where always sale of assets has been coded to historically.
But if that asset was purchased with general fund revenue,
We can look at it, but typically any assets such as material blower, let's go there. It was purchased with capital.
how about 830 South Florissant Road?
Again, I'd have to look historically at where it was purchased from, but I'm assuming that would have been a
TIF
capital purchase
TIF.
or downtown TIF. Yeah, and either way, it's not going back to general. I can legally pursue, could we allocate those two, but again, you're not realizing that it's sold. We don't know how much it's gonna sell for. That's not gonna be the best route to go.
Have you looked into, I know that economic development sales tax is an extremely restricted fund, sewer lateral is even more restrictive. Have you looked into the potential uses of TIF funding?
Problem is the TIF is right now expired. So it should not be on the books. That's why we're trying to clean the slate on that one.
Yeah, Jeffrey Bloom was saving money within the TIF to pay the bonds on the police station.
Correct.
What is the forecasted exposure of the city till the bonds are paid off for the TIF? For the PD bonds.
Yeah, I think it's realistically about 1.4 million, but I don't know that 100%,
And there's how much in the TIF fund right now?
about 1.4.
Is there a prepayment penalty on those bonds, or would we capture a savings if we paid them off in debt service?
I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think so.
I'm trying to create money
I
here.
understand. I understand where your head's going.
Okay, that's all I have for now.
It is. It's tough. These are tough cuts, but we have to do it. And so you're saying that right now, police, they're over budget. Right now, we have 32 officers,
According to payroll.
according to payroll. I mean, okay, so I would hope that our payroll is right. I mean, so I'm asking you as the city manager because you're over the day-to-day operation. So right now we have 32. I mean, the chief Doyle isn't here anymore to answer any questions. And so if we approve the cuts, the hiring freeze, I mean, I guess it's closed session, but I really would like to more so understand the police retirements, like how many police, and I understand we can't talk about that in an open session, but before we vote to make these cuts, really how that is going to look for the police department.
It's not going to be pretty.
Right, but I would like to understand what pretty looks like. Not going to be pretty, excuse me, looks like. Because I mean, it's so simple. With Fire Chief Hampton's just like, 3 positions, that's it for,
That's not simple. He's still talking to. He just rattled off because he knows that's what he's going to do, because I told them last week that this is what we were looking at. So he went through the book, looked at him, this is what I could do. It hasn't been that way.
right. But I mean, I guess I would like to understand exactly what that looks like before I vote. That's just my perspective. Other people may feel differently. And I do have a follow-up question about this sheet, this 2-page document, the staffing numbers. If that's okay, Mayor. So for clarity, under code enforcement, and this is not to come down on code enforcement, I appreciate code enforcement. But I just want to ask, so we have an office manager and a community development coordinator in code enforcement?
So the title is community development coordinator, but that's the assistant to the department. Yes, the office manager is shared technically between 32 and 28. She answers the phone, does all the back and forth with the front desk, that kind of stuff. But she is just budgeted out of 32 because that's where her salary lives. So the officer
Okay.
manager is the one that's up in the office and directs your phone calls between planning and between code and all that stuff.
And we have 3 nuisance and abatement workers,
You technically have 2 right now, but yes, 3 on paper.
but we're budgeted for 3, which means we can hire another person.
Correct.
Correct?
Mhm.
So, and this is different than the staff that works in public works.
Correct.
Okay, so what exactly are the nuisance and abatement workers?
They're the
What do
ones
they do?
going out, taking care of the lien properties, all the properties that are not ours. They're mowing the grass, getting the trash, boarding up the houses, all that stuff. They do that.
They do that, those 3 people,
Mhm.
the lien properties. Okay, okay. All right, thank you.
They took over the workload that we used to do contracted out to a third party, if you recall, and cost us an arm and a leg. We brought that in-house to absorb that labor and make it more cost effective. And then this in turn is how we are mowing those properties and we place the liens on the property for collection. We streamline that process.
Councilwoman, no, you. No, you do it? Oh, okay.
explained that before, I'm willing to, the cuts, I would like to know exactly what that looks like from each department, just in detail, that's all.
Councilman Williams.
All right, so I'm trying to find money just like Mike. So some of that 6 million, I would like to have back, but you can't. You cannot. However, while you cannot recoup the cost of compliance, cities can navigate financial impact using a few specific avenues. Federal grants, municipalities routinely apply for localized federal and state law enforcement grants such as the Department of Justice COPS Office Program of the Bureau of Justice Assistance Grants to help offset the cost of new equipment, training, and community policing initiatives. So can we
That's-
look at that?
Yeah, we already told both chiefs to look at it. Chief Hampton's looking at the SAFER grant again, which we did a few years back, that can hire for personnel salaries. Same thing with PD. There was a grant that Jason Armstrong went after several years ago, didn't come through, but that's a possibility. If they can get grant dollars, by all means, that offsets the cost, but we still have to have a balanced budget July 1, and you can't do those grants overnight. There's a time period where you apply, there's a time period where you're approved. So that's an option to look at. That's just like the tax revenue. It's an option that's down the road. We can't do it right now. And you may not get it, so you can't budget expecting to get it.
Due to the current administration, our congressmen or senators, we have a direct line to them to kind of speed it up. Because, I mean, people in Japan know Ferguson. It's crazy, you know, because of what happened. That hurt us. And it's coming down to, we're not gonna have enough police officers or firemen to protect citizens. I don't know if we can look at that avenue to try to push this grant forward. Or some assistance. So we don't have to cut fire and police.
Yes, yeah, so, those are given out usually, more towards January. Usually the longer the speeder, of the government. So we wouldn't get that right away. And still ask for.
So I would just ask, City Manager Musgrave, if you can, look into furloughs as a viable option, deal with our shortage and seeing if that's a actual process we can utilize to save jobs across the city. Again, it's worth a shot to look at it and see no
I
matter.
can send the
like-
email this evening and email you tomorrow.
Cool, appreciate it.
City manager would. Is furloughs in the same line as rotating schedule?
Yeah, it's similar. Basically, you're mandating days off for all of your staff across the board. My biggest question is how that works with police and fire and union contracts and that kind of stuff, because you have to remember, as I pointed out earlier, there's still 60% of the overall general fund. So doing a furlough on 40% of the staff is not going to generate what you're probably going to need out of this. Considering a 3% increase to the non-uniform personnel was only $83,000, you would have to do a large cut to be able to realize that kind of savings. Quick math, you're looking at a reduction of 25%. And I don't see that happening.
Councilman Castle.
You're also counting on the fact that people are going to voluntarily reduce their income by 20% and not immediately send out resumes. And if they do send out resumes, what does that cost the city, given the difficulties we have in filling positions?
I mean, let's be honest right now. I am doing the role of city manager, assistant city manager, and finance director. There's not much more we can spread across this.
Well, certainly you wouldn't be working 4 days a week. That's not even possible. and the union contracts and the demand for their services mean obviously police and fire will not be working 32-hour weeks. That's not gonna happen. So like you said, we're talking about, you know, less than half the city staff. And there's an easy solution at hand, and I think we can probably, it's 8 o'clock now. We could sit here till 10 o'clock and talk in circles, and I don't think anybody up here is gonna agree to do what you put on that piece of paper. And like you said, if we don't agree to it, you're gonna write it into the budget, and then we're all gonna have to vote yay or nay.
To be
And-
clear, because we've tried to be transparent tonight, I will gladly email legal about furloughs, and I will email you that back. But what Mr. Kassoff is saying is the case. It is my job to present you with a balanced budget. I gave you what the options were. If you don't want to vote on it, that's fine, but come Friday, I will present you with a balanced budget.
Well, I'm also concerned, and we're talking about furloughs in open forum already. So city staff is gonna hear this.
Mhm.
And if I work for a company or a city or whatever, and the boss tells me, we're cutting your pay by 20% and you're only gonna work 32 hours a week instead of 40, but we still expect you to get your whole job done. I'm out of here, man. I'm not staying at that job. And I can guarantee you that the amount of attrition that we will have in this city is going to be huge. And there's some people nodding heads, and there's other people that are tensing their neck up to not nod their heads. But we cannot afford to decimate our city staff by suggesting this sort of thing. We have a hard time getting people. I know every time we have a vacancy, it's an endless process, and we have interim people and we have people doing multiple jobs. And I mean, we have people sitting in this room that are doing multiple jobs, several people. And the idea that we're gonna now have people doing several jobs for 80% of their pay in a 4-day week, what are they gonna do? Go run DoorDash the other day? I mean, let's be serious. If we don't come up with a sound way of handling the financial reality we're in right now, we send a message to everybody who works for this city that it's a sinking ship. And if you're on a sinking ship, you go look for a boat. So I'm gonna say, I don't support furloughs. People here do a 40-hour-a-week job and they need a 40-hour-a-week paycheck. And we can't pretend. I mean, unless I'm wrong and everybody's got really easy jobs here and they could do it in 32 hours a week, but I don't think that's the case. Given the fact that headcounts have dropped throughout the city over the past decade, and the jobs haven't gotten any easier, I don't think we have a situation where people are underutilized. So when you ask for furloughs, one of two things is gonna happen. Either stuff isn't gonna get done, or, well, it's illegal to ask people to work off the clock, so that can't happen. So now we're gonna have people that are gonna call City Hall and, well, this person doesn't work this day and that person doesn't work that day because we have furloughs. And these 3 people don't work here anymore at all because when we told them they were gonna get a 20% pay cut, they sent out a resume, found a new job and got out of here. That's the situation we will create with furloughs. I'm gonna go on the record, I strongly oppose it.
Councilwoman,
I would just like to say that I don't believe that working for the city of Ferguson is a sinking ship. It's tough out there in the job market. You know, I just don't like that. If anyone, let me clarify, working for the city of Ferguson, you're getting medical, you're receiving it, you can qualify for a pension. Again, I know it's 2026. I have worked for county government. Government just does not pay a lot in most positions, the average person. That's just across the board in government. I don't think that working for this city is as bad as or the perception out there, like it's just so much to do. It's it's all of these negative things. This is a pretty decent job. I'm not saying it's the best, but people did apply to come here to work. And I'm not saying that I'm supporting a furlough because I don't have any information. Like you said, you'll send the information, you'll send the request to legal and you'll wait to hear back and send us information. So, but what I am saying is that we have a job to do. This is a decent municipality to work for. If, people apply to work here, just like I applied to work my job, I applied to be council person. We have a job to do. And since I've been sitting on this council, it's kind of been, quiet, kind of like, well, how can I say this in a respectful way? As if working for the city of Ferguson is kind of like, I work for the city of Ferguson. And and I don't like that and I don't appreciate that. Again, this is nothing negative to the staff. I appreciate the staff, but it is a conversation, a quiet conversation out there where it's kind of like working for the city. This is, you can earn a pension here. If people don't want to be here, then why are they here? I appreciate city staff and I definitely didn't want to support any cuts. I don't want to see anyone's pay being cut. I don't want to see anyone being laid off. But the truth is we have to make cuts. And like Dave said, this has been a long time coming. And we're facing it right now in 2026. And the city of Ferguson is not a bad place to work in 2026. You know that you're going to get a paycheck. Everyone has received a paycheck up until now, so I just wish we could all show a little bit more appreciation for that. Thank you.
Councilman Williams, then Councilman Castle.
I don't necessarily agree with furloughs either, because it lowers the morale. But I don't think that comment was made to be condescending. I think it was just brainstorming to think of ideas to keep staff on. Ferguson is not a bad place, but we're money strapped. And so the comments that Kassoff made are correct. Most people are gonna start applying elsewhere. And that's gonna hurt us. But it's what is that insect that comes out of a cocoon?
Butterfly?
Yeah, butterfly. That's something that can really help us out.
Who has something to say?
So council makes $250 a month and we get a $50 phone allowance. When we were cutting the budget last year, a few of us proposed to eliminate the phone allowance because we would all have a cell phone anyway. And I'm not going to name any names of my colleagues who said who absolutely would not support eliminating the phone allowance. And that's a less than a 20% cut. That's actually less than we're asking our city employees to do. And it's also, this isn't our full-time job. This is just something we do. I've looked on a few websites just now for municipalities in the metropolitan area. They are hiring. If you tell Corey's street department workers that they only gonna get paid for 32 hours a week from now on until we figure something out, it's a whole bunch of cities hiring street department workers, and they probably pay more than Ferguson. Now, people may live in the area, they may have an affinity for our city. Corey is charming and wonderful to work for, so, they stick around here. But you tell people who have a house payment and a car payment and children in school with all those expenses, and we're gonna cut your pay 20%. No, that's, I'm not saying Ferguson's a sinking ship. I'm saying that's sending a message that's gonna make people think that. And what we have to do is come up with a sound plan that will balance this budget without asking everybody that works for the city. Well, not everybody, because 60% of them are excluded, but the 40% who aren't excluded, whether they want to take a 20% pay cut on their already low-paying job here. That is the wrong thing to do. I will not support that. Our city workers need their full paycheck, period. We talk about, well, you know, we've only got 2 code enforcement people instead of 3. Well, you want to have 2 code enforcement people for 32 hours a week instead of 40? We'll really have a problem then. Bad idea, sorry.
So again, I'm not advocating for furloughs. I just want to know what that savings would look like so that we can make an informed decision. So I can't speak for all of our staff. My employer, same situation as Ferguson, big deficit, furloughs, layoffs are on the table, you know, but if I'm furloughed so that the man and the woman next to me can keep their job, I'm okay with that. But I know that's just me. Everybody doesn't think the same way. So I'm not selling furloughs, but I would like to know what that dollar amount of savings looks like to see if that can save people from losing their jobs or not. That's my only. So we don't have to go on this long rant about you don't support this and never. I just want to know what that dollar amount looks like, just so that I can make an informed decision. So just for clarity, thank you.
Any other conversation? Any other questions?
I do have. City manager, what do you need us to write down for us to move forward?
I mean, my plan right now is to go investigate the furloughs with legal. I'll email you as soon as I have the information tomorrow. And then I will go from there. I mean, technically, I have to make cuts before Friday. So you guys can't legally vote unless we're in this setting. So if we need to make a decision between furloughs and the other option we've discussed as far as budget reductions, we may have to call a special meeting for Thursday evening so that we can actually make that motion. Otherwise, I don't know how I can get you a balanced budget by Friday, if I'm honest. So I'm looking for direction from the council on which way to go other than that. That makes sense?
So, I think most people okay with fire or not. As far as, what Chief Hampton had proposed.
I want to be clear, and I'm just being clear. I went to both chiefs and gave them the same direction, and Chief Hampton just did what he was asked. I mean, Chief Doyle made a case against it, and Chief Hampton just said, I understand that this is big picture and we need to make a savings for the whole city, and so this is what I think I can do. I feel like you're very easily saying, oh, fire can do this. It's not easy. It's not easy for either department. He just found a way, and I think the same could be done in both departments if we're realistic. But again, I can't go into details as far as named positions on that. So
No, I'm not trying to name positions.
Yeah.
And I think Chief Hampton did a brilliant job trying to make it as painless as possible. I'm just asking the council, are they willing to accept his cuts or not?
Councilwoman Noah.
Well, I stated earlier that I wanted to just see a little bit more in detail. My mic is on. You can't hear me. I mean, I just would like to see exactly what the cuts look like, you know,
He already
and it's for,
explained that.
the only way you're gonna get that is a closed session. 'Cause
right,
it's
exactly.
Individuals.
Exactly, and I stated that earlier, and you stated that earlier in closed session, so I'm not understanding why that question is being asked. But as far as, you know, in FPD's defense, I would like to say FPD has worked really hard to revitalize our police department. And it's nothing against the fire department because the fire department does a great job. We love our fire department, but I think that's where the resistance probably comes from, because look at what the police has endured. And we know that, if we don't have the staff, like you said, we're over budget. FPD is over budget, but what happens if someone leaves? What happens if people get fired, before this tax is passed, and we can bring the staff back? What happens if the staff doesn't want to come back? So I know that we have these tough decisions to make, but I think that's why there's so much resistance with FPD. I mean, and I can understand that. And it's an essential source. We have to have police, like we have to have fire, but just in their defense, I guess I am defending the police department in a way because look at what all our police have endured. And I've been on this council since 21 and I've seen the hard time we've had recruiting a police chief and staff, so that's all I wanted to say. But yes, I would like, before we make this cut, to go into a closed session and understand every detail of what we are cutting before I vote. That, yes, that's what I would like, or I can talk to you tomorrow, city manager, if you want to meet with me one-on-one. I'm fine with that, but before I, vote, I need to 100% understand that.
But I don't even know that I can answer that question. Like, the directive was given that we are looking at this dollar amount to both chiefs. The bottom line is they would identify what positions they were wanting to do. Only those positions would be frozen. So they've said, I can do without X, Y, and Z. And that's what he is saying. And we could tell you that in closed session, but I can't even identify that for PD right now. That's what I'm telling you. So the directive would be, at this point, council could make a motion to cut the dollar amounts, and then it goes back and it is enforced because that was your direction. The department heads then have to find those positions and identify them. Right now, it was a voluntary exercise, just like 250 from the rest of the staff. Council has not made a motion to cut the budget by that dollar amount yet. So I can't go say, cut these positions, because it hasn't been directed to me to do so. I asked for it to be done so.
Chief Hampton?
Yeah, Councilwoman Manoa, I just hope you don't think fire just sits around. Everything PD's been through, we've been through with them, since 2014. And most of my guys are still here. So, and a lot of the police officers are not. So my guys have been through a lot as well. And this isn't easy. Don't think it's easy.
And no, and I'm not comparing you to it all,
You
but
kinda
what I'm
did, though.
saying, well, I apologize if I did, so please don't take it personally. I mean, but the reality is that FPD has, endured, in the good, the bad. I'm not saying that fire has not, but it's different with the police. It is. I mean, and we have, and this is just not in Ferguson, just across the country, we have even kids that are still afraid of the police. No one's afraid of firefighters. I mean, I'm just saying, like, in general. So this is not personal, and please don't ever take it that way. But again, I can understand why there is the resistance there with FPD, but we all have a job to do, and I'm going to do my job. I have to support the city because I'm an elected official and I was elected by the people, to do what's best in their interest. So it's not about the fire. Yes, fire, I'm very thankful for the fire department, but it's just different. And we all know that it is to a degree. What we went through in 2014 with FPD, that didn't happen in the fire department. That happened in the police department. So
Ma'am, I
anyway,
have to stop there.
this is not
Because
personal,
I had
and I'm
300 police officers
and I'm
in
done
my
with it.
engine house
I'm done
every
with it
day
there.
for 6+
Because I'm not
months.
going to go back and forth. Again, I
And we went in the
I
hot dogs. We didn't
apologize
have guns.
if I offended you all, because
We
that
don't
was
say
not my
we're doing,
intent.
we don't do it because we were there.
Don't tell me what I said.
You did though.
I apologize if I offended you all.
I don't accept the apology because that's not an apology. That's a slap in the face.
Well, I'm
We
sorry.
worked
I
our butts off
apologize.
every night during the civil unrest.
And I know
We
that,
housed a lot of police officers. We fed the police
And I know
officers out of
that.
our engine house.
and we appreciate
And
that.
we were in the same danger they were in too, every night.
And you're right. And again, I apologize if I offended you. That wasn't my intent. But it's just different when it comes to the police and fire, and we all know that. And I apologize if you take that personally, but that's my opinion. Thank you.
Right. I don't take it personally. I just don't think you know the fire and first responder world.
Councilman Cazal.
I have one quick question, but I have to address this first. The fire department, tornadoes and floods and riots and everything else that comes down the road, the people in the fire department are out there. And they're absolutely vital to our community. We've had the fire department help us a couple of times. There was smoke in our house one time and they came and identified what was going on because we were afraid our house was going to burn down. And another time there was a huge water main break that was threatening to flood one of our neighbors' houses. And the fire department came out and, got some materials and kept the house from being flooded and just saved the day. So yeah, you guys deal with danger. The situations maybe aren't always exactly the same, but you guys are there for us 24/7 as well, and I appreciate it. I did have one quick question for the city manager. My recollection is that the budget contains both the dollars as well as the detailed staffing. So when we vote on the budget, if the budget is being cut, we don't only cut dollars, we could also cut specific lines of staffing or change the staffing numbers if we felt that was appropriate,
That is
correct?
correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
City manager, you have, so,
Waiting on council.
I want to say one thing. I've lived in this city 36 years. And I've had numerous, the fire and police department has been to the next door neighbor's house. And the fire department was there and the police department was there. Let's don't get into division. But point of order. This is not a session to get into a division of who promotes the best service. Because as long as our officers, we had enough officers, there was always an officer following the fire truck for safety. In situations we get into sometimes, I don't know, it could be gunfire. The police and the fire work hand in hand. And that's one thing that it's been a thorn in my butt is the separation that we try to bring. One isn't doing the other and one isn't doing enough. If we don't work as a team, everybody's life is in jeopardy. When there's a big fire, the police is there too to control the traffic. When there's a shooting and a body laying on the ground, the fire department's there to aid the people in the neighborhood, and the police is there to solve the crime. And I don't like it. I'm for everybody. I'm for the fire and I'm for the police. And let's don't get into this division and talking about, well, you didn't do this and you're not there on this. Doggone it. They were there on 2014. I don't know if you were there, but they were there. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. When Officer Brown went down, they were there. So let's don't let this come back into our council again about talking about what the other one's not doing. Please. Dave, I'd like more clarity on the issues that Councilman Kazoff was talking about, please? And maybe we can have a meeting on Thursday to
Yeah.
get things clarified then, if possible.
So here's the
What's
kicker.
your suggestion,
Yeah,
please?
so the kicker, I can pursue furlough, all these things that we've talked about. Cause it'll be a special meeting, we'll have to know 24 hours in advance. So I will need you to check your emails tomorrow, and I will gladly text the group, let you know the email's out there, let me know what you guys wanna do. Like I said, we can't vote one way or the other, so if we're gonna decide against one or the other, we're gonna have to pursue that on Thursday or Friday, or whenever you think we can call a special meeting. We can look into digital options, that kind of stuff if we need to, but just so we're all on the same page while we're in this room.
Yes, I want everybody to be comfortable with their vote. I want everybody to be comfortable with what they do, because this is very important. A few weeks ago, I made a critical decision. And this sitting here in this chair right now is not an easy to sit in again on another critical decision that really, this is the future of our city. And I realize that. And one more time, I always want to say, I'm not for any layoffs. I come from a world of layoffs, and it does throw you in a tailspin when you do get laid off, or when you get asked to go home and take a few days off. I wouldn't find another job. I didn't sit around. Time is money, and money is time. And if you have families, you do not have time to wait for somebody to come back. I asked the questions about time sharing just for clarity. Councilman Williams.
So, all due respect, Mayor, we're not trying to separate fire and police. Like I said, both of these departments put their life on the line every time they put the uniform on. And you're definitely not for cutting fire or police. When they have organizations, the Explorer program, you're right there before you were mayor. So we have an easy way out. And that's Project Butterfly, and it's just, don't say point of order, I'm just being realistic. That is an easy way out, so we don't have to lay these off. You just said out of your mouth, layoff is not a good feeling. So it comes down to those two department heads. So, you know, I just want you to reconsider. So I know a lot of important people have talked to you that you look up to. Wesley Bell, Sam Page, former Mayor Ella Jones.
Just a minute. You naming people, they ain't even talked to me.
I'm still speaking, Mayor. It's not a point of order.
The point of order then, if you're gonna speak something, speak the truth. Just don't sit over there and talk about something you don't know.
May I finish, please?
Sure, you can finish, but watch what you say.
Okay. There's been a lot of important people that have talked to you about the importance of this project. So I just, when you go home tonight, I just want you to reconsider. That is an easy way out. It doesn't mean that we're voting for a data center. We're voting for a tax abatement. You were on planning and zoning. You can stop the data center like that. If it's not green enough or the plans don't meet the needs. I'm just saying, we don't have to have a self-inflicted wound. We have a way out. Most municipalities do not have a way out. We have a way out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Kazoff for the last one.
I just want to correct one thing. Whether we approve a tax abatement or not is a completely separate question from permissible use. Under our current zoning code in an industrial district, a data center is a permitted use by right and would not have to go before planning and zoning. They would have to get building permits, which are granted as a matter of right, so long as you're complying with the appropriate codes and hiring licensed contractors. But it is not correct to say that we could place additional requirements. Now, when we were when we were considering tax abatement, they were willing to make concessions in exchange for that tax abatement, but that was a trade-off. We were buying those concessions. If we grant a tax abatement, obviously we could negotiate that again. I think it's kind of pointless talking about this because it's not gonna happen, but the fact of the matter is data centers are permitted by right in industrial zone districts, so.
Can this- Yes, city manager.
I was just pulled aside by Lieutenant Manning, and you wanted to clarify some staff and stuff, that's all right. I just wanted to clarify the statement about.
You can come on up to the,
I just wanted to clarify the statement about us being overstaffed. We're not overstaffed. You look at that same sheet, it should show 2 lieutenant spots that haven't been filled, another sergeant spot that hasn't been filled, 6 corporal spots, and an assistant chief spot. All of those salaries are way higher than a patrolman's salary. So even for the payroll aspect, we're still way under. We're still short 2 lieutenant spots on there, a sergeant spot, 6 corporal spots, and then the assistant chief spot.
Correct, and in the sixth budget, if you look to the left, they had 4 allocated. And then corporals, again, like I mentioned earlier, they may have the officers on to do promotions, they were allocated 6 corporals, they're currently at 0. Assistant chief, they're currently at 0, they had 1 allocated in 26. Then you get down into sergeants, they had 6 allocated in 26, they're at 5. And police actual officers, that's where it was showing is over, as I mentioned, that could be because of promotions and different things within departments. But that's what we're being clear.
The clarity's for the current staff, police officers, which means if 3 or 4 leave within this FY 26-27, then we would not replace those officers
That's unknown, as mentioned earlier,
based upon
based on which
the
positions are identified.
okay.
Nobody's saying that he has to identify 6 police officers to freeze. There's admin staff, there's other staff within the department. I'm not saying what positions are gonna be frozen.
Okay.
question.
Yes.
How many file clerks do you have?
How many
Do you have any file clerks that?
record clerks?
Record clerks?
2, I believe.
Okay,
They've got 2 full-time, 2 part-time. They've got a public information officer, they've got a training coordinator, they've got 4 records clerks, 2 are part-time, 2 are full-time. They've got evidence tech, the office manager, that used to be the department secretary, it's now an office manager, and then you get into police officers, detectives, corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, police chief, and assistant chief.
The public information officer is also the consent decree coordinator.
It's a dual role. She is paid a salary for her work as PIO and then a stipend on the side out of the city manager budget for the extra work she does in the consent decree. That is correct.
yes, Councilman Bonner.
I'm requesting a motion, or actually I'm making a motion, I'm sorry. I'm making a motion to go into closed session to discuss legal and contracts.
Second,
second
we don't
it.
know.
It's been seconded that we go into closed session on legal and personnel contracts.
Not personnel.
Oh, not personnel, just contract.
Just in case.
You can add it.
Well, no, you have to withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Move to go into closed session for legal, personnel, and what was the other one?
Contracts.
Oh, that's under legal. So legal and personnel.
Second.
It's been,
Roll call.
roll call, please.
Aye.
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 The motion passes. The ayes have it.
Would you like to go to the back or upstairs?
We're going back to closed session. Closed session. What are we doing? Yeah, I have to make the motion.
Yeah, are we just?
I think so. Yeah. it does it. It's only been from some last week. I like, is there a motion, can I have a motion on the floor to move back into open session?
So moved.
Second, Lamika Covington.
May we have the vote, please?
That's a waste.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Any opposed?
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, I'd like to make, I request a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned. That went quick, didn't it? Went quick. Yeah, you can go for me, man.